I spent $9.6 million giving my husband's mother the home she had dreamed of for decades. At dinner, he laughed and called me desperate for approval. By sunrise, one hidden clause erased her ownership and exposed who truly controlled our marriage. My name is Chloe. I am 32 years old and I am a corporate forensic accountant. Right now, I am standing in the grand dining room of a sprawling coastal mansion in Newport, Rhode Island. I am holding a crystal champagne flute. My hands are perfectly still, but inside, my entire world is collapsing. I am listening to my husband publicly humiliate me. If you have ever poured your blood, sweat, and life savings into a family that views you as nothing more than a walking checkbook, this story is for you. Let me set the scene. The mansion is breathtaking. It sits on a cliff overlooking the Atlantic Ocean, featuring imported Italian marble floors, 12 bedrooms, and a mahogany-wrapped library. It is the exact kind of old money estate my mother-in-law Beatrice grew up in before her family lost their fortune decades ago. For 5 years of my marriage to Bradley, I listened to Beatrice mourn her lost social status. I listened to her sigh wistfully about the Newport society she was forced to leave behind. I grew up working class in the suburbs of Chicago. My parents drove used cars and clipped coupons. I clawed my way into the corporate world, working 80-hour weeks, auditing massive tech firms, untangling complex webs of corporate fraud. I built a massive personal stock portfolio and earned heavy performance bonuses. But no matter how much money I made to Bradley's family, I was always just the blue-collar girl who didn't know which fork to use for the salad course. I thought I could buy their respect. I thought if I gave them the one thing they wanted most in the world, they would finally look at me as an equal. So I drained my entire tech audit bonus. I liquidated my personal stock portfolio. I paid $9.6 million in cash to purchase this estate for Beatrice. Today was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. I had handed her the keys this morning. Tonight is our intimate, celebratory dinner. Just the inner circle. Beatrice sits at the head of the massive mahogany dining table, looking like a queen who has finally reclaimed her throne. Bradley sits to her right. Across from me are my brother-in-law, Travis, and his wife, Sarah. Travis is 30, wearing a tailored suit I paid for, sipping a rare vintage wine I bought. Sarah is 29, draped in designer jewelry, looking around the room as if she already owns it. The catered dinner is perfect. The private chef has just cleared the plates from our lobster course. The ocean breeze drifts through the open French doors. Everything looks like a picture-perfect wealthy American family gathering. But the tension in the room is suffocating. I keep waiting for the warmth. I keep waiting for Beatrice to look at me with gratitude, or for Bradley to reach across the table and squeeze my hand to say thank you. Instead, the conversation flows entirely around me. Travis swirls his wine glass and chuckles. He looks at his mother. This place is going to be perfect for the summer galas, Mom. We can finally invite the club members over without being embarrassed. Beatrice nods, taking a delicate sip of her champagne. Exactly, Travis. It has been exhausting pretending to enjoy those cramped little country club mixers. Now we have a proper venue to entertain our sort of people. Our sort of people. The words hang in the air. I am sitting right here. I am the one who bought the venue. But I am clearly not their sort of people. I swallow hard, forcing a polite smile. I tell myself they are just excited. I tell myself to be patient. Sarah chimes in, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness. We should probably redecorate the guest wing, though. The fixtures are a bit modern for my taste. Don't you think, Chloe? I know you do not have much experience with historical architecture, but we really need to maintain the pedigree of the house. I feel a flush of heat rise in my cheeks. I just spent nearly $10 million to give them a roof over their heads, and they are criticizing the fixtures and insulting my taste in the same breath. I look at Bradley, expecting him to defend me, expecting him to remind his sister-in-law who actually funded this entire lifestyle. Bradley just smirks and leans back in his chair. Give Chloe a break, Sarah. She is an accountant, not an interior designer. She only knows how to look at spreadsheets. The table laughs. a soft collective chuckle at my expense. I grip the stem of my champagne flute. My knuckles are turning white. I tell myself to breathe. I am a forensic accountant. I am trained to remain calm under pressure, to look at the numbers, to remove emotion from the equation. But sitting at this table, the emotional math is becoming terrifyingly clear. Bradley taps his knife against his crystal glass. The sharp, clear ringing sound cuts through the dining room. The conversation stops. Beatrice turns to her son with a look of absolute adoration. Travis and Sarah fall silent, raising their glasses in anticipation. Bradley stands up. He looks handsome in the ambient candlelight. He is 34, charismatic, the kind of man who commands a room effortlessly. When I met him, I thought his confidence was intoxicating. Now I am beginning to see it as something far more dangerous. A toast, Bradley announces, his voice echoing off the high ceilings. To new beginnings, and to reclaiming what rightfully belongs to this family. Beatrice smiles warmly. "Hear, hear," she murmurs. Bradley turns his gaze to me. I feel a sudden, desperate flutter of hope in my chest. This is it, I think. This is the moment he acknowledges me. This is the moment he tells his mother and his brother how much I have sacrificed. This is the moment I finally become part of the family. Bradley raises his glass higher. His eyes lock onto mine, but there is no warmth in them. There is only a cold, mocking amusement. "And let's toast to Chloe," he says, his voice projecting across the table. I hold my breath. He smiles, a sharp, cruel curve of his lips. She finally bought her way into our family's zip code. It only cost her $10 million to cure her desperation for our approval. The words do not process immediately. They hit the air like a physical blow, but my brain refuses to accept them. I just stare at him. I stare at the man I married, the man I love, waiting for the punchline. Waiting for him to say he is joking. Waiting for the pivot where he praises my generosity. But the pivot never comes. Instead, the table erupts. Beatrice throws her head back and laughs, a loud, genuine sound of pure delight. Travis snorts, slamming his hand on the table in amusement. Sarah giggles, hiding her mouth behind her hand as her shoulders shake. They are laughing at me. The sound of their cruel, mocking laughter bounces off the imported marble floors. It bounces off the mahogany walls I paid for. It bounces around inside my skull, deafening and absolute. It only cost her $10 million to cure her desperation. I am paralyzed. My body feels like it has been encased in concrete. The crystal flute in my hand feels suddenly incredibly heavy. I look at Beatrice, the woman whose fake tears over her lost childhood home drove me to work 80-hour weeks until I was physically sick. She is wiping a tear of mirth from her eye, looking at me with undisguised pity. I look at Travis, whose massive country club bills I have quietly paid for 2 years because Bradley begged me to help him out. Travis is clinking his glass against Sarah's, celebrating my humiliation. And then I look at Bradley, my husband. He is not looking away in shame. He is looking right at me, relishing the power he holds. He knows exactly what he just did. He knows he just took the ultimate sacrifice of my life and turned it into a punchline to entertain his snobby, broke family. In that single shattering moment, the illusion breaks. For 5 years, I believed I was failing this marriage. I believed I was not cultured enough, not elegant enough, not good enough. I thought if I just worked harder, if I just provided more, they would see my value. But looking at their laughing faces, I finally understand the truth. Love is not a transaction. You cannot buy the respect of people who are committed to misunderstanding your value. They do not see me as a daughter. They do not see me as a sister. Bradley does not even see me as a wife. They see me as an extraction operation. They see me as a blue-collar workhorse pulling a golden carriage for people who despise the smell of sweat. A hot, burning pressure builds behind my eyes. The urge to cry is overwhelming. The urge to stand up, throw my glass against the wall, and scream at them for their sheer, unadulterated entitlement. I want to list every dollar I have spent. I want to demand gratitude. I want to break down and ask Bradley why he is doing this to me, but I do not shed a single tear. As I sit there listening to the fading echoes of their laughter, the tears stop. The hurt evaporates. The betrayal freezes over. I am a forensic accountant. I spend my life disassembling lies. I hunt down hidden assets. I track fraudulent behavior. I destroy corrupt executives for a living. I do not cry when I uncover a fraud. I build a case. A cold, calculating rage takes over my entire body. It is a terrifying, beautiful sensation. The desperate people-pleasing wife dies right there at the dining table. The corporate auditor wakes up. I slowly lower my champagne glass to the table. I make sure it does not make a sound when the crystal meets the wood. I place my hands in my lap. I smooth my dress. I look at Bradley, and I force the corners of my mouth to curl upward into a perfect, polite smile. "You are terrible, Bradley," I say, keeping my voice light and breezy. My tone is flawless. It sounds exactly like a woman who is playing along with the joke. Bradley smirks, clearly pleased with himself. "Just keeping you humble, babe." Beatrice sighs, recovering from her laughter. "Oh, do not be too hard on her, Bradley. She means well. And we really are going to enjoy the house." "Yes," I say softly. "I am sure you are." I push my chair back. The legs scrape slightly against the floor. I stand up, keeping my posture perfectly straight. "Excuse me for just a moment," I say, my voice steady. "I think I left my phone in the study. I need to check on a quick work email." Nobody objects. Nobody even looks at me as I walk away. Travis is already asking Bradley about the golf simulator he wants to install in the basement. Sarah is asking Beatrice about hiring a local landscape architect. They have already forgotten I am in the room. I have paid the admission fee, and now the help is dismissed. I walk out of the grand dining room. I cross the massive foyer. My heels click against the marble. With every step I take away from that table, the coldness in my chest grows harder, denser, sharper. I reach the heavy oak doors of the study. I step inside and close the doors behind me, sealing myself in the quiet darkness of the room. The study smells of rich wood and expensive leather. I lean back against the door, close my eyes, and finally let out a long, shaky breath. I am entirely alone. The silence of the study presses in on me. I can hear the faint, muffled sounds of their voices from down the hall. I can still hear Bradley's cruel voice ringing in my ears. Desperation for our approval. I walk over to the large mahogany desk in the center of the room. I grip the edges of the desk so tightly my fingers ache. I am hyperventilating now, the shock wearing off, and the sheer magnitude of the betrayal setting in. My husband, my partner, the man I trusted with my life and my future. He is not ungrateful. He is malicious. He planned that toast. He wanted to hurt me. He wanted to show his family that even though I hold the purse strings, he holds the leash. I look down at my hands. I look at the diamond ring on my finger. A ring I helped pay for because Bradley said his bonus was delayed that year. The lies are unraveling in real time. Everything I have ignored, everything I have justified is crashing down on me. I need to think. I need to formulate a plan. I am not going to yell. I am not going to argue. I am going to dismantle this family brick by brick. And that is exactly when I hear it. A soft, repetitive pinging sound. I open my eyes. I look across the desk. Bradley's leather briefcase is resting on a side chair. The zipper is partially open. Inside, an iPad screen is glowing in the dim light, lighting up with notification after notification. Bradley never leaves his devices unlocked. But tonight he is too busy gloating to remember his security protocols. I step away from the desk. I walk over to the briefcase. I stare at the glowing screen, watching the messages roll in. My forensic training kicks in. Every instinct I have screams at me to look. I reach down and pick up the iPad. I swipe the screen. And what I see next will not just end my marriage. It will start a war. If you want to know what I found on that iPad and how I used it to take back every single dime I ever spent on this ungrateful family, you need to stay right here. Drop a comment and tell me where you are listening from. Because the revenge I executed was perfectly legal and absolutely merciless. I press my entire body weight against the heavy oak doors of the study. The thick wood shuts out the sound of the dining room, but the echo of their cruel laughter is already trapped inside my head. It bounces off the walls of my skull, sharp and deafening. I am hyperventilating. My chest heaves with shallow, ragged breaths. The imported silk of my dress suddenly feels like a straitjacket. I stumble away from the door, my legs shaking so violently that I have to grab the back of a leather armchair to keep from collapsing onto the floor. The room spins. I squeeze my eyes shut, trying to force oxygen into my lungs. I am a corporate forensic accountant. I spend my life disassembling lies. I hunt down hidden assets. I track fraudulent behavior. I destroy corrupt executives for a living. I do not panic. I build cases. But right now, the only case I am building is the horrifying realization of my own absolute stupidity. I have spent the last 5 years of my life treating my marriage like a sacred partnership, while my husband and his family treated me like a corporate account to be systematically drained. I open my eyes and force myself to look around the study. The ambient lighting casts a warm glow over the custom mahogany desk and the floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. I paid for all of it. Every single book, every piece of leather furniture, the imported rugs, the antique brass lamps. I look at these objects and they do not look like success anymore. They look like evidence. They look like a graveyard of my own blind desperation to be loved. My gaze lands on a dark green velvet box resting casually on the edge of the desk. I recognize it immediately. It is the box for the Rolex watch I bought Bradley for our 3rd anniversary. The memory hits me like a physical blow. Bradley had spent months complaining that the senior partners at his investment firm were not taking him seriously because he lacked the proper accessories. He told me that in his world, a man is judged by the timepiece on his wrist. He said it was an investment in our future. He said it was a necessary tool for a man of his pedigree. I grew up in a working-class neighborhood in Chicago. To me, a watch was just a tool to tell time. But I loved him. I wanted him to succeed. I wanted to be the supportive wife he needed. So I took on 3 extra audit contracts that year. I worked 80-hour weeks. I missed Thanksgiving with my own parents. I drank terrible office coffee and stared at spreadsheets until my vision blurred, all to save $35,000 for that watch. When I gave it to him, he did not cry. He did not pull me into a passionate embrace. He simply opened the box, inspected the dial, and said it was about time he looked like he belonged. He never thanked me. He just put it on and went to play golf. My stomach twists into a painful knot. I push myself away from the armchair and walk slowly toward the desk. My hands are trembling as I reach out and touch the stack of mail resting next to the velvet box. The top envelope is already torn open. It bears the crest of the elite Newport Country Club. I pull the heavy cardstock invoice from the envelope. It is a receipt for a $50,000 initiation fee paid in full in the name of my brother-in-law, Travis. I stare at the numbers printed on the crisp white paper. $50,000. Just last month, Beatrice came to my office in tears. She sat in my guest chair, dabbing her eyes with a lace handkerchief, telling me that Travis was on the verge of a depressive breakdown. She said he was being excluded from his social circle because he could not afford the club dues. She told me that the family name was losing its influence and that Travis needed this membership to secure a new job. She held my hands and told me I was the only one who could save him. She told me I was the angel of the family. I liquidated a portion of my vested company stock that very afternoon. I wired the money directly to the club to spare Travis the embarrassment of handling the transaction himself. I sacrificed my own financial security to protect a grown man's fragile ego. And how did Travis repay me tonight? He laughed at me. He sat at my table drinking the vintage wine I bought and laughed while my husband called me desperate. The invoice falls from my trembling fingers and flutters to the floor. The physical evidence of my exploitation is everywhere. I look across the room at a stack of medical bills I organized last winter. Beatrice claimed she had a severe heart condition that required treatment at a private holistic wellness clinic in Switzerland. Insurance would not cover it. Bradley begged me to help his mother. He said I was earning so much from my corporate bonuses that it was only right to share the wealth with the family. He said old money families always take care of their elders. I paid $80,000 for that wellness clinic. I stayed home in the freezing snow, eating frozen dinners and working late nights to cover our mortgage, while Beatrice spent 6 weeks in the Swiss Alps. When she returned, she brought me a cheap box of chocolates from the airport and complained that the clinic did not have enough caviar on the dinner menu. She never mentioned her heart condition again. She never showed me a single medical report. The truth is finally piercing through the thick fog of my denial. There was no heart condition. There was no medical emergency. It was a luxury European vacation funded entirely by the blue-collar girl they constantly mock. I was not a daughter to them. I was a limitless credit card. I was a financial extraction operation disguised in a white wedding dress. A wave of nausea washes over me. I grip the edges of the mahogany desk, my knuckles turning white. The financial bleeding did not start with this house. It started the day Bradley put a ring on my finger. A ring that I later discovered he bought using a loan he took out in my name. He told me it was a clerical error. He told me his credit was temporarily tied up in a trust fund dispute. I believed him. I believed every single lie because I was so desperately insecure. I spent my entire childhood wearing hand-me-down clothes and listening to my parents argue about the electric bill. When I met Bradley with his tailored suits and his casual conversations about summering in the Hamptons, I thought I had stepped into a fairy tale. I thought his family represented everything elegant and refined. I thought their condescension was just a sign of their superior breeding. I shrunk myself to fit into their world. I lowered my voice. I hid my working-class accent. I stopped talking about my stressful job because Beatrice said talking about money was incredibly vulgar. It is hilarious in retrospect. Talking about money was vulgar, but demanding it from me was perfectly acceptable. I was expected to generate the wealth, silently hand it over completely and disappear into the background while they enjoyed the spoils. The nausea slowly fades, replaced by something entirely different. The heat of my panic begins to cool. The frantic beating of my heart starts to slow down, settling into a steady, powerful rhythm. I am no longer hyperventilating. I stand up straight. I smooth the wrinkles from my silk dress. The desperate, people-pleasing woman who walked into this study 5 minutes ago is gone. She died the moment Bradley raised his champagne glass and turned my sacrifice into a punchline. I am a corporate forensic accountant. I dismantle massive financial frauds for a living. I have brought down tech billionaires who thought they could hide their assets in offshore accounts. I have shredded complex embezzlement schemes with a single spreadsheet. I know how to track every single penny. I know how to find the weak points in any legal structure. Bradley and his family have made a fatal miscalculation. They forgot who they were dealing with. They mistook my love for stupidity. They mistook my generosity for weakness. I begin to pace the length of the study. My mind is operating at light speed, calculating figures, recalling contract clauses outlining the exact legal parameters of my assets. Everything is in my name. The cars are in my name. The investment accounts are funded entirely by my income. Even the joint checking account is sustained by my direct deposits. Bradley earns a modest salary as a low-level investment manager, a job he only keeps because his family name carries a tiny bit of residual weight in this town. He spends his entire paycheck on expensive lunches and custom-tailored suits. He contributes absolutely nothing to our actual survival. I stop pacing. I look toward the heavy oak doors. I can still hear the faint sound of their voices. They are out there right now, eating the lobster I paid for, drinking the champagne I selected, laughing at my expense. They think they have won. They think they have successfully secured their future at the cost of my entire life savings. They think this $9.6 million mansion is the final victory in their long con. They have absolutely no idea what is about to happen to them. The silence of the study is suddenly broken by a sharp, crisp sound. Ping. I freeze. I slowly turn my head toward the leather side chair tucked into the corner of the room. Bradley's expensive Italian leather briefcase is resting on the seat. The zipper is pulled back. Ping. The sound comes from inside the briefcase. It is a text message notification. Ping, ping, ping. The notifications are arriving in rapid succession, a relentless barrage of digital noise cutting through the heavy quiet of the room. I walk over to the chair. I look down into the open briefcase. Bradley's iPad is resting on top of a stack of client folders. The screen is glowing brightly in the dim light. Bradley is usually obsessive about his devices. He uses complex passcodes and biometric locks. He guards his phone and his tablet with a paranoid intensity that I always assumed was just a byproduct of working in finance. But tonight, he is too busy gloating. Tonight, he is drunk on expensive wine and his own perceived brilliance. He tossed his iPad into the briefcase without locking the screen. The display is wide open, illuminating the dark leather interior. I stand over the briefcase staring down at the glowing rectangle. My training tells me that discovering the truth always requires crossing a line. I do not hesitate. I do not feel a single ounce of guilt for invading his privacy. He forfeited his right to privacy the moment he decided to publicly humiliate me in my own home. I reach down and pick up the iPad. The device feels heavy and cold in my hands. I look at the screen. It is an active group messaging thread. The notifications are rolling in faster than I can read them. I look at the top of the screen to identify the participants. The thread includes 3 people: Bradley, Beatrice, and Travis. I look at the title they have given to this private group chat. The words are typed clearly in bold black letters across the top of the screen. The real estate play. My breath catches in my throat. A cold chill washes down my spine, settling deep into my bones. The real estate play. The title alone is enough to confirm every horrifying suspicion that just materialized in my mind. This was never about giving a mother her dream home. This was a calculated strategic operation. I hold the iPad tightly. My thumbs hover over the screen. I know that reading these messages will permanently destroy whatever fragmented illusion of my marriage still exists. I know that once I scroll up, there is no going back. The blue-collar girl from Chicago who just wanted a family will be gone forever. The corporate auditor is the only one who will remain. I take one deep, steadying breath. I swipe my finger down the screen, pulling up the history of their conversation. I begin to read. The glowing screen of the tablet illuminates the dark leather interior of my husband's briefcase. I stand perfectly still in the quiet study, listening to the muffled, arrogant sounds of their laughter drifting down the long hallway from the dining room. My thumb hovers over the glass surface of the screen. My heart is hammering against my ribs in a frantic, desperate rhythm, but my hands are as steady as a surgeon's. The group messaging thread is titled, "The Real Estate Play." There are only 3 participants in this digital room: Bradley, Beatrice, and Travis. I press my finger against the screen and I swipe downward, scrolling back through time. I need to know the origin of this betrayal. I need to see the exact moment my marriage turned from a lie into a conspiracy. The first message in the thread is dated exactly 6 months ago. It is from my mother-in-law, Beatrice. I read the words, and they steal the breath directly from my lungs. She writes, "Travis is in trouble again, Bradley. We are entirely out of options this time. We need to initiate the house plan immediately. We have to get her to buy the property." I stare at the digital text, the white letters burning into my retinas. 6 months ago. The timeline aligns with terrifying precision. That was exactly the same week Beatrice started coming to our house every Sunday afternoon. That was the week she sat at my kitchen island, weeping softly into her coffee cup, mourning the loss of her childhood status. She spun a devastating narrative about how her health was rapidly declining, how her doctors were concerned, and how her only dying wish was to live out her final years in a proper coastal estate just like the one her family had lost decades ago. I remember holding her hand. I remember wiping her tears with my own thumbs. I remember looking her in the eye and promising her that I would figure something out, that I would take care of her because that is what family does. I worked myself to the point of physical collapse for the next 6 months. I took on 3 additional corporate auditing contracts. I drank terrible office coffee at 3 in the morning, pushing my body and my mind past the point of exhaustion, all to secure the massive cash bonuses required to buy this $9.6 million dream. And all along, her tears were nothing but a calculated, scripted performance. I scroll further up the screen. Travis enters the chat. My brother-in-law, the man who just sat at my table drinking my vintage wine and laughing at my expense, sends a frantic message to his mother and brother. He writes, "They are threatening to break my legs, Mom. These guys are not joking around. The bookies do not care about our country club pedigree or our family name. I need $2 million in cash by the end of the year, or I am a dead man." $2 million! The number echoes in the empty study. I lean heavily against the edge of the mahogany desk, my knees suddenly weak. Travis does not suffer from clinical depression. He does not have severe social anxiety that requires a $50,000 country club membership to cure. He is not a misunderstood young man trying to find his footing in the corporate world. Travis has a massive, life-threatening, illegal gambling debt, and he owes it to dangerous people. All those times Bradley came to me with a heavy sigh, asking me to transfer $5,000 here or $10,000 there, claiming he was just helping his little brother cover rent or invest in a startup. It was all a complete fabrication. It was a holding action, a way to pay the interest on a massive underground debt while they orchestrated their grand finale. Bradley's response in the group chat is cold, authoritative, and utterly chilling. He tells his brother, "Calm down, Travis, and let me handle my wife. I have been softening Chloe up for months. She is so desperate for you and Mom to accept her. She wants to belong to our world so badly, it is pathetic. She just received her tech audit bonus and her personal stock portfolio is fully vested. We are going to get her to buy the Newport estate in Mom's name." Softening Chloe up. The sheer, unadulterated malice of that phrase hits me like a physical blow to the stomach. I am not his partner. I am not his wife. I am a target. I am a piece of meat to be tenderized before consumption. Bradley knew exactly how insecure I felt about my working-class background. He knew that growing up with parents who clipped coupons and worried about the electric bill left me with a deep, unspoken desire for stability and acceptance. He weaponized my deepest vulnerability. He used my genuine love for him and my desperate yearning for a family as a crowbar to pry open my bank accounts. Beatrice replies to Bradley's message. Her words drip with aristocratic paranoia. She asks, "Are you absolutely sure she will put the property deed entirely in my name, Bradley? She is a forensic accountant. She is trained to look for risk. She knows better than to surrender an asset like that." Bradley's response makes the blood freeze in my veins. He writes, "She is an accountant, Mom, but she is also a massive people pleaser. She wants to be an old money wife. If I tell her it is a matter of family tradition, if I tell her that putting the house in your name will restore our family pride, she will sign the deed over without blinking. Once you officially hold the title to the mansion, we simply wait 30 days. Then we take out a massive equity line of credit against the $9.6 million value of the house. We use the bank's money to pay off the $2 million Travis owes the bookies. I am staring at a digital blueprint of total financial exploitation. They are not just ungrateful snobs. They are active conspirators. They plan to saddle the property I paid for in cash with a massive $2 million mortgage just to cover illegal gambling losses. They view my life savings as nothing more than a slush fund for their own reckless incompetence. I keep reading my thumb swiping across the screen. The messages jump forward in time, documenting weeks of their deception. I read messages where they coordinate their fake emotional breakdowns. I see texts where Bradley literally coaches his mother on exactly what to say to me when I come home from work. He tells her to mention my working-class parents in a condescending tone just to keep me insecure. He tells them exactly which psychological buttons to push to keep me chained to my desk grinding out 80-hour weeks to fund their salvation. The chat history moves closer to the present. It reaches yesterday, the day we met with the real estate attorneys to sign the closing paperwork. Travis writes the blue-collar workhorse actually pulled it off. I cannot believe it. $2 million is going to look like pocket change compared to the total equity we can pull out of this massive place. Once my debt is clear, I'm going to buy a new boat with the leftover cash. Beatrice chimes in, her tone dripping with entitlement. Just remember to act grateful at the dinner tomorrow night, boys. We need her compliant and happy until the final legal papers are signed. Do not push her too far, Bradley. Let her have her little moment of glory. And then I see Bradley's response. It is the final, ultimate betrayal. The message was sent just 3 hours ago, right before we sat down in the dining room for our celebratory lobster dinner. Bradley writes, Mom, you do not need to worry about Chloe pushing back on anything. Tomorrow morning she thinks we are going to breakfast to sign routine tax documents with my lawyer. It is actually an ironclad post-nuptial agreement. It states that she assumes all marital debt and relinquishes all claims to assets held in your name. Once the post-nuptial agreement is signed tomorrow, I am moving Jessica into the guest house. Chloe will be too tied up in the mortgage and the new debt to ever afford to divorce me. She will be trapped paying for our lifestyle forever. Jessica. The name drops into the pit of my stomach, heavy and toxic. Jessica is Bradley's young blonde receptionist at the investment firm. She is 24 years old. Just last year I bought her a lavish baby shower gift when she claimed she was having a child as a struggling single mother. I paid over $1,000 for a premium imported stroller because Bradley sat on our couch and told me a heartbreaking story about how she was barely making ends meet. I close my eyes. The truth crashes over me like a tidal wave. The baby is not a random mistake. The baby is Bradley's. My husband has a mistress. He has a child with another woman, and he plans to move them onto the very property that I just bought with $9.6 million of my own money. He plans to install his mistress in my guest house while I work myself into an early grave in the city to pay off his brother's gambling debts and fund his mother's country club memberships. The cruelty of this plan is so absolute, so flawlessly and meticulously designed that it transcends simple infidelity or greed. This is a premeditated financial execution. They sat at my table tonight, smiling at me, eating the food I paid for, drinking the vintage wine I selected, knowing that tomorrow morning they were going to lock a legal and financial collar around my neck and throw away the key. They laughed at me because they thought they had already won. They thought I was nothing more than a naive, desperate fool who had blindly financed her own total destruction. I open my eyes. I look at the glowing tablet screen one more time. I read his words again. Chloe will be too tied up in the mortgage to divorce me. I keep the tablet in my hands. The screen dims, but I tap it with my finger to keep the evidence glowing in the dark study. I am staring at the digital blueprint of my own assassination. I think about the breakfast meeting scheduled for tomorrow morning. Bradley told me it was just a quick signature for the joint tax returns. I trusted him implicitly with the tax paperwork because I was always so busy actually earning the money. The betrayal of using the very legal and financial structures I respected to enslave me is a violation so profound it rewrites my entire history with this man. I slowly lower the tablet. I stand perfectly still in the center of the mahogany-wrapped room. The violent trembling in my hands completely stops. The crushing, suffocating weight in my chest lifts, evaporating into the cool, conditioned air of the room. The hot tears that had been burning the backs of my eyes dry up instantly. There is a specific moment in every corporate forensic audit where the scattered numbers suddenly stop being just numbers. There is a moment of total crystallization where you see the exact architecture of the fraud. You see where the hidden accounts line up. You see how the shell companies are layered. You see the weak points in the embezzlement scheme. And when that moment of absolute clarity happens, you do not feel sad for the victim anymore. You do not feel angry at the perpetrator. You feel the cold, mechanical, terrifying precision of justice waiting to be executed. The desperate people-pleasing wife who walked into this study 20 minutes ago is dead. She has been entirely consumed by the corporate auditor. I am the woman who has dismantled multinational tax evasion rings. I am the woman who tracks missing millions across encrypted offshore accounts for breakfast. I destroy corrupt executives for a living. Bradley is a mid-level investment manager who buys custom-tailored suits on credit. Travis is a degenerate gambler with a $2 million debt. Beatrice is a broke socialite pretending to still have money. They are amateurs. They are sloppy, arrogant, entitled amateurs. And they have just made the fatal mistake of leaving their entire criminal conspiracy documented in writing on an unlocked device. They think they have me trapped. They think tomorrow morning I'm going to walk blindly into a law office and sign away my financial freedom. They think they are going to use my money to pay off violent bookies and move a mistress onto my estate. They think this $9.6 million coastal mansion belongs to them. They forgot one crucial, devastating detail. They forgot that they are dealing with a woman who reads complex legal contracts the way other people read the morning news. They forgot that because I am a forensic accountant, I never take anyone at their word when it comes to the transfer of massive wealth. I turn my head and look toward the heavy oak doors of the study. I can still hear them out there in the dining room. I can hear Travis's booming, arrogant laugh. I can hear Beatrice's delicate, fake giggle. I can hear Bradley's confident, commanding voice entertaining his family. They are celebrating my financial funeral. They are toasting to their own brilliance. I stand alone in the quiet dark, gripping the tablet. The war has already started. They just do not realize that I am the one who is going to finish it. The screen of the tablet burns against the dark leather of the briefcase. I have just finished reading the digital blueprint of my own financial execution. The group chat between my husband, my mother-in-law, and my brother-in-law sits open, detailing their plan to saddle the Newport mansion I just bought with a $2 million mortgage to pay off a gambling debt. And then the final knife twist. Bradley plans to move his 24-year-old mistress Jessica into the guest house once he locks me into a fraudulent post-nuptial agreement tomorrow morning. For a fraction of a second, the sheer weight of the betrayal threatens to crush my chest. The instinct to scream, to shatter the crystal glasses on the mahogany desk, to march down the hallway and flip the dining table over rises in my throat like bile. But I swallow it down. Screaming is what victims do. Screaming is what people do when they have lost control. I am a corporate forensic accountant. I do not lose control. I take inventory. I reach into the pocket of my silk dress and pull out my phone. My hands have stopped shaking completely. The desperate, people-pleasing wife who walked into this room is entirely gone, replaced by a cold, calculating auditor who has just uncovered a massive corporate fraud. And in this scenario, my marriage is the fraudulent corporation. I open the camera application on my phone. I know that if I simply forward the messages to myself, Bradley might see the sent receipts or the email trail on his tablet. I cannot leave a single digital footprint. I need physical evidence of his digital crimes. I lean over the briefcase holding my phone steady above the tablet. I snap the first photograph. The soft click of the camera shutter sounds deafening in the quiet study, but it is instantly drowned out by the sudden roar of laughter drifting down the hallway from the dining room. They are still out there celebrating my destruction, drinking the vintage wine I purchased. I use their arrogance as my metronome. With steady, methodical precision, I scroll to the very top of the group chat titled, "The Real Estate Play." I take a picture of the initial message from Beatrice demanding that Bradley initiate the house plan to save Travis from his dangerous bookies. Click. I scroll down. I photograph Travis whining about needing $2 million in cash to save his own legs from being broken. Click. I photograph Bradley coaching his mother on exactly how to manipulate my working-class insecurities, instructing her to fake a medical crisis, and cry about her lost childhood home. Click. I document every single lie. I capture every calculated manipulation. I take picture after picture, moving systematically through 6 months of their conspiracy. My heart rate is slow and steady. My breathing is deep and controlled. This is what I do best. I build an airtight case. I reach the bottom of the conversation thread, capturing the final devastating messages. The ones where Bradley gloats about the fake tax documents he plans to make me sign tomorrow. The ones where he casually mentions moving his pregnant mistress onto the property. Click. I close the camera application on my phone. I open a secure encrypted server application that I use for my corporate audit files. It requires dual biometric authentication and a complex alphanumeric password that only I know. I upload every single photograph directly to the cloud server, bypassing my phone's local storage entirely. The progress bar fills, slowly transmitting the evidence of my ruined marriage to a secure digital vault in Switzerland. Once the upload reaches 100%, I permanently delete the photographs from my phone's camera roll. I clear the deleted items folder. I run a quick diagnostic check to ensure no residual data remains. The evidence is secured. I have the ammunition I need. Now I have to cover my tracks. I look down at the tablet resting inside the Italian leather briefcase. I need to leave it exactly as I found it. Forensic auditing requires an obsessive attention to detail, a perfect memory of how a scene was constructed before you entered it. I remember that the tablet was angled slightly to the right, resting on top of a stack of manila client folders. The screen was still on, but the brightness was turned down. I pressed the home button, leaving the group chat open, knowing that if I closed the application, Bradley might notice the disruption in his digital routine. I carefully place the tablet back onto the folders, adjusting the angle until it perfectly matches my memory. I leave the zipper of the briefcase partially open, exactly how he carelessly abandoned it. I step back from the desk, surveying the room. Everything is in its proper place. The velvet box, holding the expensive Rolex watch I bought him, sits undisturbed. The country club invoice I paid for Travis remains on the side table. The study looks identical to how it looked 20 minutes ago when I walked in seeking refuge from their cruel jokes. But the reality of the room has fundamentally shifted. It is no longer a sanctuary. It is a crime scene, and I am the lead investigator. I turn my head toward the heavy oak doors. The sounds of the dinner party have changed. The boisterous laughter has quieted down, replaced by the clinking of silverware and the low murmur of conversation. And then I hear it. Heavy footsteps echoing on the imported marble floor of the hallway. They are moving away from the dining room. They are moving steadily toward the study. Someone is coming. My mind races, calculating variables and probabilities at lightning speed. It is Bradley. It has to be Bradley. He is coming to check on his obedient, humiliated wife. He is coming to ensure that his cruel toast did not push me too far to make sure I am still compliant and ready to sign my life away tomorrow morning. The footsteps stop right outside the heavy oak doors. The brass doorknob begins to turn slowly. I have less than 2 seconds to completely alter my physical and emotional state. The corporate auditor must vanish. The desperate, insecure wife must return. I let my shoulders slump forward instantly, shrinking my posture. I bite down hard on the inside of my cheek, letting the sharp pain force a sudden rush of moisture into my eyes. I cross my arms over my chest, adopting a defensive, vulnerable stance. I turn my body away from the desk and the briefcase facing the bookshelves on the opposite wall. I take a shallow, ragged breath, letting my shoulders tremble just enough to suggest I have been crying. The heavy doors swing open. Bradley steps into the study. He looks incredibly handsome in the dim ambient lighting, wearing the custom-tailored suit I paid for, projecting an aura of effortless old money charm. For 5 years that charm had blinded me to the rot underneath. Now, looking at him, I see nothing but a parasite. But I cannot let him know that. I must play the game. I must become the perfect victim to keep him blind to his own impending destruction. "Chloe," he says, his voice smooth and laced with artificial concern. "What are you doing in here, hiding in the dark?" I do not turn around immediately. I keep my back to him, letting the silence stretch out, playing the role of the wounded woman trying to gather her composure. I sniffle softly, a pathetic, convincing sound. "I am not hiding," I say, keeping my voice low and slightly tremulous. "I was just looking for a phone charger." My battery is dying. Bradley walks further into the room. I can hear his expensive leather shoes crossing the imported rugs. He stops a few feet behind me. He is close enough that I can smell the expensive cologne I bought him for his birthday, mixed with the rich scent of the vintage wine he was just drinking while laughing at my expense. "You have been in here for 20 minutes, he says, his tone shifting slightly, probing for a reaction. "Everyone is waiting for you in the living room for coffee. Mom wants to show you the catalog for the new patio furniture she wants to order. More things for me to buy. More financial bleeding." I force myself to turn around and face him. I keep my head lowered slightly, looking up at him through my eyelashes, the perfect picture of submissive uncertainty. I let him see the unshed tears shining in my eyes. I let him see the manufactured hurt. "I am sorry," I whisper, my voice cracking perfectly. "I just needed a minute. That toast you made at dinner. It really hurt my feelings, Bradley. You made me sound like I was just trying to buy my way into your family. Like my sacrifices meant nothing to you." I watch his face carefully, tracking every micro-expression. I see the brief flash of annoyance in his eyes, quickly replaced by a practiced, patronizing warmth. He thinks he is managing me. He thinks his psychological manipulation is working perfectly. He steps forward and places his hands on my shoulders, pulling me slightly toward him. I force my body to remain relaxed, resisting the overwhelming urge to pull away from his toxic touch. "Oh, Chloe." He sighs, his voice dripping with condescension. "You are being too sensitive again. You know how my family communicates. We tease the people we love. It is a sign of acceptance. You are finally one of us now. You bought Mom this beautiful house and she is thrilled. I am thrilled. Do not ruin a perfect evening by overthinking a simple joke." He strokes my arms, his thumbs tracing circles on my skin. Every touch makes my skin crawl. But I lean into him slightly, playing the desperate woman desperate for his validation. "It did not feel like a joke," I murmur, keeping my gaze fixed on his chest, avoiding looking directly into his lying eyes. "It felt like you were all laughing at me, like I am still just the blue-collar girl from Chicago who does not belong in Newport." Bradley chuckles softly, a rich, reassuring sound that makes me want to vomit. He lifts his hand and tilts my chin up, forcing me to look at him. His handsome face is arranged into an expression of absolute sincerity. It is a terrifying performance. If I had not just read the digital blueprint of his betrayal, I would have believed every single word. "You belong with me," he says softly, maintaining intense eye contact. "You are my wife. You have done so much for this family, and we appreciate it more than you know. Mom is just old-fashioned, and Travis is an idiot sometimes, but they respect you, Chloe. I respect you. You just need to stop being so insecure and embrace the life we are building together." The life we are building together. The guest house he plans to move his mistress into. The $2 million gambling debt he plans to hang around my neck. I look at him, this man who has orchestrated my total financial ruin, and I smile. It is a small, fragile, hesitant smile. The smile of a woman who desperately wants to believe she is loved. "Okay," I whisper. "I am sorry for overreacting. I just want everything to be perfect." "It is perfect," he assures me, his ego visibly inflating as he successfully pacifies his foolish wife. He leans down and presses a soft, lingering kiss to my forehead. The physical contact is repulsive, but I close my eyes and let out a soft sigh, completing the illusion of my total submission. He pulls back, keeping one arm wrapped around my waist, guiding me toward the study doors. "Let us go back out there and have some coffee. Mom is dying to show you those patio sets." I walk beside him, matching his slow, confident pace. The crisis is averted in his mind. The blue-collar workhorse has been soothed and put back into her harness. He thinks I am walking back out to the dining room to continue serving his family. He has absolutely no idea that he is walking beside an executioner. We reach the doorway of the study. Bradley pauses, his hand resting on the brass knob. He turns to me, his expression shifting from romantic reassurance to casual business. The transition is seamless, practiced chilling. "Oh, and by the way, babe," he says, keeping his tone light and entirely unremarkable. Do not forget we have an early morning tomorrow. We are meeting Jonathan at the law firm at 8:30 to sign that quick tax paperwork. My heart executes a slow, cold revolution in my chest. The quick tax paperwork. The ironclad post-nuptial agreement designed to strip me of my assets and lock me into his family's debt forever. He mentions it so casually, wedging the financial trap between a kiss on the forehead and a conversation about patio furniture. It is masterful manipulation. I look up at him, my expression blank, innocent, trusting. Right, I say softly. The tax forms. I completely forgot. It will only take 20 minutes, he assures me, smiling down at me with genuine satisfaction. Just some routine signatures to protect our joint assets now that we own this massive estate. Jonathan has everything prepared. You just need to sign on the dotted line, and then I will take you out for a nice breakfast by the water to celebrate. Just the two of us. A nice breakfast by the water. Just the two of us. While he secretly plans to move Jessica and his unborn child onto the property I just bought. The sheer audacity of his lie is almost breathtaking. He thinks I am going to walk into that law office tomorrow morning blindly. He thinks I am going to pick up a pen and sign away my freedom, my money, and my future, all while thanking him for a plate of eggs and a view of the harbor. I look at my husband standing in the doorway of the $9.6 million mansion I purchased for his mother, believing he holds all the cards. I see the smug certainty in the set of his jaw. I see the arrogant gleam in his eyes. He believes the game is already over. He believes he has won. I reach out and adjust the lapel of his expensive suit, smoothing the fabric with meticulous care. I would not miss it for the world. Bradley. I say, my voice perfectly steady, perfectly sweet. I will be ready right at 8:30. We can get all the paperwork out of the way, and then we can finally start our real life together. Bradley beams, completely oblivious to the double meaning of my words. He leans in and kisses my cheek, thoroughly convinced of his own genius. Perfect, he says. Now let us go look at some expensive chairs. He opens the heavy oak doors and we step out of the quiet study, walking back into the bright, echoing foyer of the Newport mansion. The sound of Beatrice and Travis laughing floats through the air, mixing with the clinking of fine china. I walk beside the man who is actively trying to destroy me, wearing a polite smile, moving steadily toward the dining room. My hands are empty, but I am fully armed. The digital evidence is secured on an encrypted server in Switzerland. The truth of their conspiracy is burned into my mind. The trap they have set for me tomorrow morning is now clearly visible. Bradley thinks tomorrow is the day he locks the collar around my neck. He does not realize that tomorrow is the day I pull the floor out from under his entire world. I just have to survive the rest of this night, make a few strategic phone calls while he sleeps, and prepare the absolute total devastation of his family's false empire. The corporate auditor is fully awake, and she is ready to go to war. The glowing red numbers on the digital clock resting on the mahogany nightstand read 2 a.m. The faint crimson light casts a long, distorted shadow across the imported silk sheets of the California king bed. I am lying perfectly still on the very edge of the mattress. My eyes are wide open, staring at the vaulted ceiling of the Newport mansion. The house is entirely silent, save for the rhythmic, distant crashing of the Atlantic Ocean against the coastal cliffs outside the window. Beside me, my husband Bradley is sleeping soundly. His breathing is deep even and completely untroubled. His handsome face is relaxed in the moonlight, filtering through the sheer curtains. He looks like a man without a single care in the world. He looks exactly like a man who believes he has just successfully executed a flawless multi-million-dollar con against his own wife. I turn my head slightly and watch his chest rise and fall. Just a few hours ago, before the dinner party, before the cruel toast, before I opened his unlocked tablet in the study, I would have looked at him and felt a surge of desperate, clinging devotion. I would have felt the familiar heavy ache of wanting to be enough for him and his aristocratic family. But right now, looking at the man I married, I feel absolutely nothing. The desperate, people-pleasing woman who spent 5 years shrinking herself to fit into his world died in the study tonight. The woman lying in this bed is a corporate forensic accountant, and she is currently calculating the exact sequence of events required to completely dismantle his life. I slowly slip out from under the heavy down comforter. I move with practiced silent precision, careful not to shift the mattress. My bare feet touch the cold Italian marble floor. I pick up my phone from the nightstand. I do not look back at Bradley as I walk out of the master bedroom and slip into the adjoining master bathroom. I gently pull the heavy oak door shut until I hear the soft click of the lock sliding into place. The bathroom is massive, echoing, and cold. I walk over to the glass-enclosed shower and turn the brass handle all the way to the hottest setting. The water roars to life, hitting the tile with a loud rushing sound that will mask any conversation I'm about to have. Steam begins to roll over the top of the glass, filling the room with a thick, heavy mist. I lean against the double vanity, staring at my reflection in the massive mirror. My face is pale, but my eyes are dark-focused and terrifyingly calm. I unlock my phone and open my encrypted contact list. I dial a number I have only ever used for corporate emergencies. The phone rings once. It rings twice. Jonathan answers on the third ring. His voice is sharp, alert, and entirely awake despite the hour. Jonathan is a senior partner at a cutthroat corporate litigation firm in Chicago. He is a legal shark, a man who thrives on midnight crisis, calls, and high-stakes financial warfare. We have worked together for 3 years, tearing apart corrupt executives and liquidating fraudulent companies. Chloe, he says, his voice low and professional over the sound of the running shower. It is 2 a.m. on the East Coast. Tell me you are calling because a tech billionaire is trying to hide assets in the Cayman Islands. I am calling because I need to initiate a hostile takeover, I say, my voice perfectly steady. And I need it executed by sunrise. There is a brief pause on the line. I can hear the sound of a chair squeaking as Jonathan sits up. Who is the target, Chloe? My marriage, I reply. I do not waste time with tears. I do not explain my broken heart. I deliver the facts with the clinical detachment of an auditor presenting a final damage report. I tell Jonathan everything I discovered on Bradley's unlocked tablet. I lay out the architecture of their conspiracy piece by piece. I explain Travis and his $2 million illegal gambling debt to violent bookies. I explain Beatrice and her calculated, tearful performance to manipulate my working-class insecurities. I explain their grand strategy to take out a massive equity line of credit against the $9.6 million coastal estate I just purchased with my own life savings. Then I deliver the final devastating blows. I tell him about Jessica. The 24-year-old pregnant mistress Bradley plans to move into the guest house. And finally, I tell him about the trap set for 8:30 this morning. The breakfast meeting with Bradley's shady lawyer, where I am supposed to sign routine joint tax documents that are actually an ironclad post-nuptial agreement designed to strip me of my assets and lock me into his family's massive new debt. For a long moment, the only sound on the line is the rushing of the hot water hitting the shower floor. When Jonathan finally speaks, his professional detachment has fractured, replaced by a genuine, urgent legal panic. Chloe, Jonathan says, his voice tight with alarm, listen to me very carefully. You are in extreme danger. If you signed that property deed over to Beatrice yesterday morning, they have the leverage. They hold the title. If we try to freeze the asset now, they will tie us up in family court litigation for years. Beatrice can legally take out that equity loan tomorrow afternoon before a judge even looks at our emergency filing. Why in the absolute hell did you put a $10 million physical asset directly into your mother-in-law's name? You are a forensic accountant. You know better than to surrender control of a primary asset without a safety net. I watch the steam rolling across the bathroom mirror, slowly obscuring my reflection. A cold, genuine smile spreads across my face. Jonathan, I say softly, do you really think I would ever hand over a $9.6 million asset to a woman who refuses to carry her own groceries? I hear Jonathan stop breathing for a second. What did you do, Chloe? I am a corporate auditor. I explain, my voice dropping into a smooth, rhythmic cadence of legal and financial superiority. I spend my entire life tracking people who lie about money. I love my husband, but I never turn off my professional paranoia. When Beatrice demanded the house be in her name for the sake of family pride, I told Bradley I would handle the real estate attorneys. And I did. I handled them perfectly. I reach out and wipe the clear circle in the condensation on the mirror. I did not buy this coastal mansion in Beatrice's name, I continue. 2 weeks ago, I quietly registered a single-member, anonymous limited liability company in the state of Delaware. The company is called Coastal Management Holdings. I am the sole managing member. I hold 100% of the voting rights and equity. Coastal Management Holdings purchased this estate in cash. The deed belongs entirely to my corporate entity. But I saw the photos on social media. Jonathan argues, his legal mind racing to catch up. I saw Beatrice holding the closing binder. I saw her signing the documents with a silver pen. She signed a beautifully bound, incredibly thick stack of paper, I confirm. Bradley and Beatrice were so blinded by their own greed, so intoxicated by the champagne the realtors were pouring, and so convinced of my desperate stupidity that they did not actually read the text of the documents they were signing. Beatrice saw a stack of legal paper with her name on it and assumed she was becoming a wealthy landowner. What did she sign? Chloe, Jonathan asks, and I can hear the dawning realization, the predatory excitement building in his voice. She signed a revocable tenant at will agreement, I say, letting the words hang in the heavy, humid air of the bathroom. The agreement was drafted with extreme corporate legal jargon, making it look like a complex title transfer to an untrained eye. But the mechanics of the document are brutally simple. Beatrice acknowledged that Coastal Management Holdings owns the property. She acknowledged that she is being granted temporary conditional access to the premises entirely at the discretion of the managing member. She agreed that she holds no equity, no title, and no rights to the property. And most importantly, she signed a specific waiver agreeing that the managing member can revoke her tenancy at any time for any reason with 0 days' notice required. A loud, sharp burst of laughter echoes through the phone. It is a genuine sound of sheer, unadulterated professional respect. Jonathan is laughing. Chloe, you absolute monster, Jonathan says, his voice thick with admiration. She does not own the mansion. She does not own a single brick. She is a glorified hotel guest, and she just signed away her right to a standard eviction process. Exactly, I reply, leaning closer to the mirror. And right now, she is sleeping in the master suite down the hall, dreaming about a $2 million mortgage that she cannot legally obtain while her son dreams about forcing me to pay for it. We are going to obliterate them, Jonathan says, his tone shifting instantly into battlefield command. What are your exact orders? I need a corporate strike package ready by sunrise. I instruct my mind, categorizing the legal steps with flawless precision. First, I need you to draft a formal corporate dissolution of tenancy on the Coastal Management Holdings letterhead. Cite the exact clauses Beatrice signed yesterday. Second, I need an immediate emergency notice to vacate. Make the deadline exactly 60 minutes from the moment of service. Done. Jonathan confirms, the sound of his fingers flying across a mechanical keyboard echoing through the phone. What about the physical execution? We cannot just hand her a piece of paper. Bradley will try to physically barricade the house or call the local police to claim you are having a mental breakdown. I have already thought of that, I say. Do you still have the contact for that private security contracting firm we used to secure the server rooms during the Mitchell embezzlement case last year? I do, Jonathan says. They have a regional tactical team based out of Providence. They are expensive, Chloe. They charge corporate crisis rates for immediate deployment. Money is no longer an object, I tell him coldly. Wire them whatever retainer they demand from my secure offshore holding account. I want a team of at least 4 licensed, uniformed private security contractors standing at the front gates of this estate by 10 o'clock this morning. I want them flanking a registered process server. I want this to look like a federal raid. Jonathan is typing furiously. Security team requested. Retainer authorized. Dissolution notices are being drafted now. I will have the final PDF documents routed to your encrypted email within the hour. You can print them at the local shipping center before you return to the house. I nod, even though he cannot see me. The trap is perfectly set. The architecture of their destruction is completely locked into place. What about the breakfast meeting with Bradley? Jonathan asks. The 8:30 appointment where he plans to ambush you with the fraudulent post-nuptial agreement. Do you want me to contact his attorney and cancel it? No, I say softly, the cold smile returning to my face. Do not cancel anything. I am going to attend that breakfast. I am going to sit across from my husband and his shady lawyer. I am going to drink my coffee, and I am going to smile at him. Bradley believes he's walking into that office to steal my entire financial future. I am going to let him believe he is winning right up until the very last second. I have a special surprise prepared for his precious paperwork. I hear Jonathan exhale a long, satisfied breath. You are a terrifying woman, Chloe. I was a good wife, Jonathan, I correct him. My voice dropping to a harsh, absolute whisper. I gave them everything. I gave them my money, my time, my youth, and my heart. They decided to treat me like an ATM. They decided to turn my love into a financial extraction operation. Now they get to deal with the corporate auditor. I will see you on the battlefield, Chloe, Jonathan says. I end the call. The screen of my phone goes dark. I stand in the bathroom for a few more minutes, listening to the hot water pounding against the tile. The steam is so thick now that I can no longer see my reflection in the mirror at all. I am completely invisible in the white mist, just as I have been completely invisible in this marriage. But that ends today. I reach out and turn the brass handle shutting off the shower. The sudden silence in the bathroom is deafening. I unlock the heavy oak door and step back out into the cold, moonlit master bedroom. Bradley has shifted in his sleep. His arm is thrown across the empty space where I usually lie, reaching out for the warmth of the woman he thinks he has broken. I walk over to my walk-in closet, pull out a fresh set of clothes for the morning, and lay them out with meticulous care. I check the time on my phone. It is nearly 3 a.m. Sunrise is just a few hours away. Bradley told his family that I was desperate for their approval. He told them that I bought my way into their zip code. He thinks he holds the leash. He thinks he controls the game. He has absolutely no idea that by the time the sun reaches the highest point in the sky today, his mother will own nothing, his brother will be hunted by bookies, and his entire life will be systematically reduced to zero. I sit on the edge of the velvet bench at the foot of the bed, perfectly still, perfectly calm, and I wait for the sun to rise. The morning sun reflects blindingly off the glass skyscrapers of downtown Chicago as I hand my car keys to the valet outside the Harbor View Bistro. It is exactly 8:30 a.m. My stomach is a tight knot of anticipation, but my hands are perfectly steady. I am wearing a tailored navy blue blazer and a simple silk blouse. I look exactly like the obedient, trusting wife my husband expects to see. I walk through the heavy brass doors of the restaurant, letting my eyes adjust to the dim ambient lighting. The host guides me to a secluded booth in the back corner, a table specifically chosen for privacy. Bradley is already there. Sitting across from him is his attorney. Let us call the attorney Richard. Richard is a man in his late 50s, with slicked back silver hair and a suit that costs more than my first car. He has the kind of smooth, predatory smile that belongs to people who make a living hiding assets and burying inconvenient truths. Bradley stands up when I approach the table. He pulls me into a brief, performative hug, kissing my cheek with a practiced warmth that makes my skin crawl. He smells like expensive espresso and the same cologne he wore last night when he publicly humiliated me in front of his entire family. Good morning, babe, Bradley says smoothly, pulling out my chair for me. You look beautiful today. I ordered you a cappuccino and the avocado toast. I sit down and fold my hands in my lap. Thank you, Bradley, I reply, keeping my voice light and pleasant. That sounds perfect. Bradley gestures across the table. Chloe, this is Richard. He is a senior partner at the firm I told you about. He graciously agreed to meet us for breakfast to get this quick tax paperwork sorted out before my mother's big move and brunch later today. Richard leans forward and offers a firm handshake. It is a pleasure to finally meet you, Chloe. Bradley speaks very highly of your financial acumen. I smile back, projecting nothing but polite naivete. It is nice to meet you too, Richard. I really appreciate you taking the time to handle this for us. I know how complicated real estate tax structures can be, and I'm just glad Bradley has someone so experienced to help us navigate it. The waiter arrives with my coffee and breakfast, providing a brief interruption. I take a slow sip of the cappuccino. My mind is operating with absolute clarity. I know exactly what is sitting inside the leather briefcase resting on the floor next to Richard. I know it is not a routine tax form. I know it is an ironclad postnuptial agreement designed to completely strip me of my wealth. I know that Bradley plans to use it to trap me into paying off his brother's $2 million gambling debt, while simultaneously moving his pregnant 24-year-old mistress onto the estate I just purchased. But sitting here sipping my coffee, I do not show a single fracture in my facade. I am a corporate forensic accountant. I spend my professional life sitting across from corrupt executives who think they are the smartest people in the room. I know how to play the game. You let them talk. You let them feel in control. You let their arrogance blind them to the trap closing around their ankles. Richard wipes his mouth with a linen napkin and reaches down for his briefcase. Well, he says, his tone shifting into a casual business rhythm. I know you two have a very busy day ahead with Beatrice moving into her new home, so we can make this incredibly quick. He pulls out a thick stack of legal paper bound with a heavy blue clip. He places it on the center of the table right next to the salt and pepper shakers. He slides a silver pen across the polished wood. As Bradley mentioned last night, Richard continues smoothly. These are the standard asset protection and tax liability documents associated with your new property acquisition. Because the Newport estate is valued at nearly $10 million, the state requires a formalized division of marital liability to prevent any undue tax burdens on your personal income. It is a beautiful lie. It is wrapped in complex financial terminology, specifically designed to sound intimidating and boring at the same time. The goal is to make the victim zone out and just sign the dotted line to make the jargon stop. I lean forward and look at the document. The cover page simply reads, Marital Asset and Liability Clarification Agreement. They did not even have the courage to put the word postnuptial on the front page. I reach out and pull the stack of papers toward me. I open the cover. My eyes scan the dense paragraphs of legal text. Even though I already know the contents from reading Bradley's unlocked tablet last night, seeing the actual printed words sends a fresh wave of cold fury through my veins. Clause 4 explicitly states that I assume sole individual responsibility for any and all mortgages, equity lines of credit or encumbrances placed upon the Newport estate. Clause 7 dictates that I waive all rights to alimony or spousal support in the event of a divorce. Clause 9 is the absolute masterpiece. It states that all liquid assets, including my personal stock portfolio and my vested tech audit bonuses, will be reclassified as joint marital property under Bradley's primary managerial control. They are not just trying to steal the house. They are trying to steal my past, my present, and my future. They want to turn me into an indentured servant to their aristocratic delusions. I look up from the document. Bradley is watching me closely. There is a slight tension in his jaw. He is waiting to see if the blue-collar girl from Chicago is going to blindly obey or if she's going to ask too many questions. This is quite thick, I say softly, letting a trace of hesitation enter my voice. I flip through the pages, pretending to be overwhelmed by the legal language. I thought this was just a simple tax form for the IRS. Bradley reaches across the table and covers my hand with his. His touch is warm and reassuring, a perfect performance of husbandly devotion. It is standard boilerplate, Chloe, he says gently. You know how lawyers are. They use 50 words when 5 would do. It just protects you from being personally liable for the estate taxes if the property value fluctuates. Richard drew it up specifically to keep your audit bonuses safe from the IRS. I look deeply into my husband's eyes. I see the man who laughed at my sacrifice. I see the man who called me desperate for approval. I see the man who plans to move another woman into my home. Oh, I say, my voice softening into a whisper of relief. Thank you, Bradley. That makes perfect sense. I am just so tired from all the moving preparations. I am glad you are looking out for me. Bradley smiles a smug, victorious curve of his lips. He leans back in his chair completely satisfied. He thinks the execution is over. He thinks he has won. Richard taps the final page of the document. "We just need your signature on page 14, Chloe. And then Bradley will countersign right below you and I will notarize it." I nod obediently. I pick up the silver pen. I turn to page 14. The signature lines are clearly marked, but I do not sign. Not yet. I need to create a distraction. A forensic accountant does not rely on luck. A forensic accountant relies on manipulated variables. I planned this exact moment 3 hours ago in the quiet darkness of the Newport mansion. I reach for my coffee cup. As my fingers brush the ceramic handle, I intentionally bump the edge of the saucer. The cup tips forward. A splash of hot cappuccino spills over the rim, pooling directly onto the polished wooden table, dangerously close to Bradley's expensive suit sleeve. "Oh my goodness," I gasp, jumping back in my seat. "I am so clumsy. Bradley, watch your jacket." Bradley curses softly, pushing his chair back to avoid the spill. Richard immediately grabs his linen napkin and leans across the table to sop up the coffee, before it reaches the legal documents. For exactly 4 seconds, both men are entirely focused on the spilled liquid and the preservation of Bradley's custom-tailored clothing. 4 seconds is an eternity when you know exactly what you are doing. My leather tote bag is resting on the seat beside me, partially unzipped. Inside, resting right at the top, is a single sheet of heavy legal paper. It is a corporate banking authorization form that I printed at a 24-hour shipping center at 4 o'clock this morning. The formatting of my paper is identical to the post-nuptial agreement. Same font, same margins, same heavy stock. I even matched the page number at the bottom, page 14. But the text on my page has absolutely nothing to do with marital tax liabilities. My page is a direct authorization for the immediate liquidation and transfer of all funds held in our joint investment accounts. It authorizes the bank to release the entirety of our shared portfolio directly into a protected single-member trust controlled exclusively by my corporate entity, Coastal Management Holdings. It strips Bradley of his signatory access instantly. While Richard is frantically wiping up the coffee and Bradley is brushing off his lapel, my left hand moves with invisible speed. I slide page 14 of the fraudulent postnuptial agreement out from under the blue clip. I drop it silently into the open zipper of my tote bag. In the same fluid motion, I extract my corporate banking form and slide it perfectly into place at the back of the legal stack. The entire swap takes less than 3 seconds. It is a flawless sleight of hand, born from years of handling massive stacks of corporate financial records. By the time Richard sits back down and Bradley pulls his chair forward, the document resting on the table looks exactly the same. The trap has been set, but the prey has been switched. "I am so sorry," I say, my voice fluttering with manufactured embarrassment. "I am just so clumsy today. My nerves are completely shot with the big brunch happening this afternoon." Bradley waves it off, though his annoyance is barely concealed. "It is fine, Chloe. Just please be careful. Let us just get this signed so I can get back to the house." Mom needs help coordinating the caterers for the church congregation. Richard adjusts his glasses and points to the document. "Right here on the bottom line, Chloe." I look down at my banking authorization form. I read the text outlining the total liquidation of our joint assets. I pick up the silver pen. I sign my name with a smooth, confident flourish. I slide the document across the table to Bradley. "Your turn, babe," I say cheerfully. Bradley does not even glance at the text on the page. He is too arrogant to believe that a blue-collar girl from Chicago could ever outsmart him in a financial transaction. He is too intoxicated by his own perceived brilliance. He grabs the pen. He signs his name directly below mine with quick, aggressive strokes. He has absolutely no idea what he just did. With those quick strokes of his pen, Bradley did not secure a $2 million mortgage. He did not lock me into an ironclad post-nuptial agreement. He legally authorized the total draining of his only financial safety net. He just handed me the keys to destroy him. Richard pulls the document back. He signs his own name as a witness and stamps it with his notary seal. He has not read the page either. He assumes it is the same document he printed at his office yesterday. "Excellent," Richard says, sliding the entire stack into a manila envelope. "I will file this with the county clerk this afternoon. You two are all set." Bradley stands up. He looks down at me. His handsome face is glowing with absolute triumph. He believes he has successfully enslaved me. He believes his pregnant mistress is moving into my guest house. He believes his brother's gambling debts are now my problem. "Thank you for being so understanding about the paperwork, Chloe," Bradley says, his voice dripping with condescending affection. "I know this legal stuff is boring for you, but it really is for the best." I stand up and smooth my navy blue blazer. I look right into his lying eyes. "You are welcome, Bradley. I am so glad we got everything settled permanently." He checks his expensive Rolex watch, the one I bought him. "I have to run. Mom is expecting 75 people from the church congregation for the move-in brunch at noon. You are coming, right?" I offer him a warm, bright smile. "I would not miss it for the world. I have a few quick errands to run downtown, but I will be at the mansion right at noon." Bradley leans in and kisses my cheek. He smells like victory. Perfect. "See you at home, babe." He turns and walks out of the Harbor View Bistro with Richard trailing behind him. I stand alone at the quiet corner table. I watch them disappear through the heavy brass doors into the bright Chicago morning. I reach into my tote bag and pull out the original page 14 of the postnuptial agreement. I slowly tear it into tiny pieces and drop the shreds into my empty coffee cup. I look down at my own watch. It is 9:15. The emergency eviction notice from my lawyer has already been drafted. The private security team is currently en route to Rhode Island, and the joint investment accounts are currently being legally drained to zero. Bradley thinks the game is over. He has no idea the execution is just beginning. I pick up my bag and walk out of the restaurant. The trap is perfectly set. The coastal sun is blinding as I pull my car into the empty parking lot of a public beach, just half a mile down the road from the Newport mansion. I put the car in park and turn off the engine. The dashboard clock reads 11:45 in the morning. I sit in the silence for a long moment, listening to the rhythmic crashing of the Atlantic Ocean waves through my open window. My heart is beating with a steady, powerful rhythm. The terrified, insecure wife who cried in the dark study last night is completely gone. The woman sitting in the driver's seat right now is a corporate executioner. I check my rearview mirror. Parked directly behind me is a massive, unmarked black sport utility vehicle. The heavy doors open and 3 men step out onto the crushed gravel. 2 of them are incredibly broad-shouldered men wearing dark tactical uniforms and heavy boots. They are licensed private security contractors, highly trained veterans hired by my attorney Jonathan at 2 in the morning. The 3rd man is wearing a crisp gray business suit and carrying a thick manila folder. He is a registered process server. I step out of my car and walk toward them. The gravel crunches under my heels. The security team leader, a man with graying hair and piercing blue eyes, extends his hand. He introduces himself as David. He tells me they have secured the perimeter of the property and are entirely ready to execute the legal strategy the moment I give the signal. I look at these men professionals who specialize in hostile corporate takeovers and high-risk evictions, and I feel a profound sense of calm wash over me. I tell David the objective is simple. We are going to walk through the front doors of a $9.6 million estate. We are going to serve an emergency notice to vacate to a woman who truly believes she is an untouchable high society matriarch. We are not going to raise our voices. We are not going to show any anger. We are going to execute a flawless, legally binding eviction in front of her entire church congregation. David nods, his expression entirely serious and focused. He asks if I'm ready to proceed. I think about the breakfast meeting I just survived at the Harbor View Bistro. I think about my husband Bradley smiling at me with absolute arrogance after signing a document that unwittingly liquidated his entire financial safety net. I think about the pregnant mistress he plans to move into the guest house. I smooth the wrinkles from my navy blue blazer. I am more than ready. I tell David to follow my lead. I get back into my car and drive the remaining half-mile down the winding coastal road. The wrought iron gates of the estate are propped wide open to welcome the elite guests. The sweeping circular driveway is completely packed with luxury vehicles. Gleaming Mercedes BMWs and Range Rovers catch the midday sun, creating a blinding mosaic of wealth. I have to park my car on the manicured grass near the stone retaining wall, because there is absolutely no space left on the pavement. The sheer scale of the event is breathtaking. Beatrice has spared no expense using my credit cards, of course. Massive white catering tents have been set up on the expansive back lawn overlooking the ocean cliffs. A professional valet station is operating near the front steps with attendants running back and forth with keys. I can hear the bright, sophisticated sounds of a live jazz trio floating on the salty ocean breeze, mixing perfectly with the clinking of crystal glasses and the low, self-important hum of wealthy people congratulating themselves on their own exclusivity. I walk up the wide stone steps toward the massive double mahogany front doors. The doors are propped wide open to catch the breeze, framing the grand imported marble foyer like a theatrical stage. I pause on the threshold, staying perfectly still in the cool shadows of the arched entryway. David and his security team fall into a tight professional formation right behind me. They wait in total silence, a looming wall of dark uniforms against the bright Rhode Island sunshine. I take a long moment to survey the scene playing out inside my own house. There are at least 75 people gathered in the grand foyer and the adjoining formal living room. These are the wealthiest, most elite members of Beatrice's church congregation. The women are wearing pastel summer dresses, expensive wide-brimmed hats, and heavy pearl necklaces. The men are wearing light linen suits, loafers without socks, and holding perfectly crafted morning cocktails. And standing right in the absolute center of the foyer, directly beneath the glittering crystal chandelier, is my mother-in-law. Beatrice is in her absolute element. She is wearing a flowing silk gown that looks like it belongs on a Hollywood red carpet, paired with a diamond tennis bracelet that I personally paid off just 3 months ago. She is holding a mimosa in one hand and gesturing grandly with the other. She is completely surrounded by a captive, adoring audience of church elders and country club wives. I listen to her voice carrying clearly over the jazz music. She is bragging loudly, her tone dripping with a manufactured aristocratic entitlement that makes my stomach turn. She tells a woman in a bright yellow dress that it feels so incredibly wonderful to finally be back in a proper home. She claims with a straight face that she always knew the Lord would restore her family to their rightful place in Newport society after their tragic financial hardships. She actually points to the sweeping mahogany staircase and talks at length about the expensive renovations she plans to undertake to erase the terrible modern fixtures the previous owners installed. She is spending phantom money on a house she does not own, talking about a legacy built entirely on my stolen wages. It is a spectacular, breathtaking delusion. I watch her sip her mimosa, basking in the admiration of her peers, entirely unaware that the ground beneath her feet is about to completely vanish. My eyes slowly scan the rest of the crowded room, moving past Beatrice and her adoring audience. I am meticulously looking for the final piece of the puzzle. Bradley is not here yet, assuming he is still flying back from Chicago, completely convinced his financial trap worked flawlessly. But I know who is waiting for him. It takes me less than a minute to find her. Standing near the back of the formal living room, hovering discreetly near the open French doors that lead to the back patio, is Jessica, Bradley's 24-year-old receptionist, the mistress. She is wearing a delicate floral maternity dress, and her left hand rests gently protectively on her slightly rounded belly. She is sipping sparkling water, watching the party with a soft, incredibly satisfied smile on her young face. She is already looking at the massive estate like she belongs here. She is looking out at the guest house through the window, probably planning exactly how she wants to decorate the nursery with my money. She mingles quietly, playing the role of the sweet, unassuming coworker, while secretly preparing to usurp my entire life. The sheer audacity of her presence, invited by my husband to celebrate the theft of my assets while I was supposedly signing my financial death warrant in another state, sends a final freezing wave of absolute clarity through my veins. There is no room left for sadness. There is no room left for grief over a marriage that was never real. There is only cold, mechanical justice waiting to be executed. I reach back without looking and tap David lightly on the arm. I give a single sharp nod. The wait is officially over. I step boldly across the threshold and walk directly into the blinding light of the grand foyer. My heels strike the imported Italian marble with a sharp, commanding rhythm that cuts through the ambient noise. Behind me, the heavy synchronized boots of the two massive security contractors echo like rolling thunder in the cavernous, high-ceilinged space. The process server walks purposefully beside them, his face a perfect mask of legal detachment. We do not look like arriving party guests. We look like a federal strike team invading a private country club. The visual disruption is immediate and violent. A waiter carrying a silver tray of beluga caviar completely freezes in his tracks, his eyes wide with sudden alarm. A wealthy woman standing near the front door gasps softly and takes a hurried, stumbling step backward, spilling her orange mimosa all over her expensive leather shoes. The psychological ripple effect is instantaneous. The lively, arrogant hum of conversation begins to die off, section by section like a wave of heavy silence rolling across the massive room. The upright bass player in the jazz trio notices the strange commotion and abruptly stops plucking his strings. The saxophone player stutters to an awkward, squeaking halt. Within 15 seconds, the music completely dies. The entire $9.6 million mansion falls into a terrifying, suffocating silence. 75 high society guests turn their heads in absolute unison to stare at the front doors. The tension in the air becomes so thick it is practically suffocating. Beatrice is mid-sentence gesturing with her champagne flute when the heavy silence hits the room. She notices her captive audience suddenly looking past her shoulder with expressions of shock and confusion. She turns around slowly, an incredibly annoyed expression forming on her face, fully prepared to harshly scold whoever dared to interrupt her grand self-congratulatory monologue. Her eyes land on me. At first, she just looks deeply confused. She sees my navy blue blazer, my perfectly calm expression, and my empty hands. She is expecting the meek, desperate, people-pleasing daughter-in-law who always shrinks into the background and pays the bills without complaining. But then her gaze shifts slightly and she registers the massive, unsmiling men flanking me. She sees the dark, tactical belts. She sees the serious, uncompromising faces of the contractors. She sees the professional process server holding a thick, ominous legal file. The color drains from Beatrice's face so rapidly, it looks like she's experiencing a sudden medical emergency. The smug aristocratic matriarch completely vanishes, replaced in a fraction of a second by a woman who suddenly realizes she is standing on a trap door that is about to spring open. She takes a tentative, shaky step forward, her expensive silk gown rustling loudly in the dead quiet of the foyer. "Chloe," she says, her voice tight, strained, and completely devoid of its usual patronizing warmth. What on earth is the meaning of this? Her panicked eyes dart nervously back and forth between me and the security contractors. She tries to force a polite, dismissive laugh for the benefit of her staring church friends, but the sound comes out like a dry, desperate gasp. "Why are you arriving late to my housewarming party with these men? We have highly important guests here today." I do not stop walking until I'm exactly 3 feet away from her. I stand perfectly straight. I do not lower my gaze. I do not fidget. I look directly into the panicked eyes of the woman who faked a severe heart condition to steal my hard-earned money, the woman who laughed uncontrollably at my ultimate sacrifice just last night at the dinner table. Beatrice. I say, my voice projecting clearly and flawlessly across the completely silent room. I ensure that every single guest, every church elder, and the pregnant mistress in the back of the room hears my words. I am not arriving late to your party. I am arriving right on time for my appointment. Beatrice's face contorts with an ugly mixture of rising panic and desperate rage. She realizes her carefully constructed public image is unraveling in real time in front of the very people she desperately wants to impress. She attempts to seize control of the narrative through sheer aristocratic bullying. She points a trembling, manicured finger directly at David's chest. "I demand that you ask these thugs to leave my property immediately," she hisses, her voice rising in pitch and echoing off the vaulted ceiling. "You are embarrassing this family, Chloe. You are ruining my absolutely perfect day. Remove these thugs from my foyer right this second, before I call the local police and have you all arrested for trespassing." I look at her pointing finger. I look at the terrified, bewildered faces of the congregation members pressing themselves against the mahogany walls. I turn to the process server and give him a slight authorizing nod. The process server steps forward smoothly, closing the remaining distance between himself and my hyperventilating mother-in-law. He holds out the thick manila folder containing the corporate dissolution of tenancy and the 60-minute emergency eviction notice signed by a judge. Beatrice crosses her arms tightly over her chest, stepping back, completely refusing to accept the file. She glares at the man with absolute venomous disgust, as if touching the paper would physically burn her skin. The process server does not blink. He does not argue. He simply reaches out and lightly taps the heavy folder against her bare shoulder. "You have been served, ma'am," he says, his voice devoid of all human emotion, a pure instrument of the legal system executing a command. He lets the folder fall from his hands to the marble floor. It hits the ground with a heavy echoing final thud that sounds like a gavel striking a block. A collective horrified gasp goes up from the crowd of churchgoers. Beatrice stares down at the folder at her feet, her hands trembling violently at her sides. She looks up at me, her eyes wide with a sudden primal fear as the reality of her total lack of control sets in. "What is this, Chloe?" she demands, her voice finally breaking into a pathetic, high-pitched whine. "Why did you bring thugs to my party?" I look around the spectacular sunlit mansion I bought with years of my own blood, sweat, and tears. I look past the crowd at the mistress hiding near the patio doors. I look down at the ruined, broke matriarch standing in front of me. I smile. It is a cold, terrifying, unapologetic smile. "I didn't bring thugs to your party, Beatrice," I say slowly, making absolutely sure the entire congregation hears every single devastating syllable. "I brought property managers to my house." Beatrice stares down at the thick manila folder resting on the imported Italian marble floor. She refuses to touch it. Her manicured hands tremble at her sides, but her lifelong habit of aristocratic arrogance refuses to let her surrender immediately. She looks back up at me, her face pale and drawn, and then she forces a loud, ringing laugh. It is a terrible, brittle sound that lacks any genuine warmth. She looks around at the 75 members of her elite church congregation, waving her hand dismissively in the air. "This is a ridiculous prank," Beatrice announces to the room. Her voice shakes slightly, but she projects it with the practiced confidence of a woman used to hosting galas. Chloe has always had a very strange sense of humor. "I signed the property deed yesterday morning with my own silver pen. The real estate attorneys handed me the closing binder themselves. I own this estate. I am the sole owner. You cannot evict someone from their own forever home." The crowd of wealthy guests murmurs in polite agreement. A few women in pastel summer dresses nod sympathetically at Beatrice, shooting me looks of absolute disgust. They clearly think I am having a mental breakdown. They think I am a bitter, uncultured daughter-in-law trying to ruin a beautiful afternoon with a tasteless public stunt. I do not argue with her. Arguing is what you do when you are dealing with equals. I simply turn away from her panicked face and walk with measured, confident steps toward the center of the formal living room. The jazz trio had set up a small audio-visual station near the massive stone fireplace to accommodate the afternoon toasts. A high-quality microphone rests on a chrome stand. Directly above the fireplace is a massive 85-inch smart television currently displaying a looping slideshow of Beatrice's carefully curated family photographs. Images of my husband smiling on a chartered yacht and Beatrice posing in Aspen flash across the screen, creating a perfectly manufactured illusion of generational wealth. I step up to the microphone. I pull my phone from the pocket of my navy blue blazer. I am not playing a prank, I say directly into the microphone. My voice booms through the high-ceilinged room, echoing sharply off the mahogany walls. The sheer volume makes several guests jump in surprise. And you did not sign a property deed yesterday, Beatrice. You signed a revocable tenant at will agreement. With a few quick taps on my phone screen, I override the television's casting network. The slideshow of happy, fake family moments instantly vanishes. In its place, a high-definition PDF document appears on the massive screen. It is the corporate registration and property deed for Coastal Management Holdings. I zoom in on the ownership clause so the black text is massive, undeniable, and perfectly clear to every single person in the room. This estate was purchased entirely in cash by an anonymous single-member limited liability company. I announce, pointing up at the screen, I am the sole managing member. I hold 100% of the equity and the voting rights. I own every single brick of this mansion. You own absolutely nothing, Beatrice. You are a temporary guest and your welcome has just officially expired. Beatrice stares up at the massive television screen. Her jaw drops. The last remaining color drains completely from her face. She turns to look at the process server, then back to the screen, her mind finally connecting the devastating legal reality of her situation. She is not a wealthy Newport landowner. She is a squatter in a house I bought with my own blood, sweat, and tears. But that is only the beginning of the lie. I continue gripping the microphone stand. The cold steel feels grounding under my hands. For 5 years, I was told that this family represented the pinnacle of Newport society. I was told that I needed to work 80-hour weeks to fund your lavish lifestyle, because old money families take care of their own. But there is no old money here. There is only a desperate broke family running a massive financial extraction operation on a woman who just wanted to be loved. I swipe my finger across my phone screen. The corporate document disappears from the television. It is instantly replaced by a bright screenshot of a digital group chat. The header at the top of the screen reads, "The Real Estate Play," in bold black letters. The profile pictures of Beatrice Bradley and Travis are clearly visible next to their text messages. A collective gasp ripples through the crowd. This is not dense corporate legal jargon anymore. This is private, undeniable digital evidence, and it is projected 20 feet tall for the entire congregation to read. Let us read some of these private family messages together, I say, my voice ringing with cold, absolute authority. This is a group chat between my husband, my mother-in-law, and my brother-in-law. The first message is from Beatrice herself. She says Travis is in trouble again. We are entirely out of options. We need to initiate the house plan immediately. We have to get Chloe to buy the property. I look over at Beatrice. She is swaying on her feet, looking like she might physically collapse. A distinguished church elder standing next to her actually takes a large, hurried step away, putting immediate physical distance between himself and the scandal. And why did they need me to buy the property? I ask the silent room. I swipe to the next screenshot. Let us look at a message from Travis. He writes, "They are threatening to break my legs. The bookies do not care about our family name. I need $2 million in cash by the end of the year, or I am a dead man." The reaction from the crowd is instantaneous and visceral. Several women cover their mouths in pure horror. The older men in their tailored linen suits begin muttering to each other in absolute shock. The illusion of the sophisticated, wealthy Dixon family is instantly vaporized. They are not high society elites. They are desperate degenerates mixed up with violent underground criminals. I scan the crowd and find Travis. He is standing near the edge of the catering tent, holding a small plate of imported cheese. His face is ghost white, his eyes wide with absolute terror. He drops the plate. It shatters loudly against the stone patio, but nobody even looks down at the broken porcelain. They are all staring at him with undisguised disgust. The people standing nearest to him literally turn their backs, forming a wall of social rejection. My husband and his family plan to use the deed of this house to take out a massive $2 million equity line of credit, I explain, projecting my voice effortlessly over the rising murmurs of the horrified crowd. They plan to use my life savings to pay off an illegal gambling debt to violent bookies. They sat at my dinner table last night drinking vintage wine that I paid for, and they laughed at me. My husband raised his glass and called me desperate for their approval. I swiped to the next screenshot. The television now displays a long message from my husband Bradley. Bradley wrote this message to his mother to calm her nerves about the plan. I say, reading the words, slowly letting every cruel syllable sink into the minds of the 75 church members. He writes, "She is a massive people pleaser. If I tell her that putting the house in your name will restore our family pride, she will sign the deed over without blinking." I look out at the sea of faces. The wealthy guests are no longer looking at me with pity or judgment. They are looking at me with horrified realization. They are witnessing the complete dissection of a family they thought they knew. They are seeing the raw, predatory greed that fueled Beatrice's entire existence. This morning I continue the steady cadence of my voice commanding total attention. My husband took me to a lovely breakfast. He brought his shady attorney. He handed me a thick stack of papers and told me they were routine tax forms. He smiled at me across the table and told me he loved me. But I am a forensic accountant. I actually read the documents. They were an ironclad post-nuptial agreement. It was designed to force me to assume all marital debt, including the $2 million mortgage they plan to take out today. It was designed to strip me of my remaining personal assets and lock me into financial slavery to this family forever. Beatrice suddenly finds her voice. She lunges forward, her silk gown rustling wildly. "Stop it!" She screams, her aristocratic facade completely shattered, replaced by the shrill, ugly panic of a cornered animal. "Turn that screen off right now. You are lying. You altered those messages. This is a private family matter. You have no right to do this to us in front of our friends." "They are not your friends, Beatrice," I reply, my voice perfectly steady and unaffected by her screaming. "They are your audience, and the show is finally over." I look at the women in the front row. The same women who just 20 minutes ago were listening to Beatrice brag about her expensive interior renovations. They are now looking at her like she is carrying a highly contagious disease. Social ruin in this elite circle is permanent and unforgiving. Beatrice has not just lost a physical house today. She has lost the only currency that ever truly mattered to her. Her reputation is entirely annihilated. Nobody in this room will ever speak to her again. Nobody will invite her to their summer galas. Nobody will sit next to her in a church pew. She is officially a social pariah. But the financial theft is not even the worst part, I say. I lower my voice just slightly, forcing the entire room to lean in to hear me. The silence in the mansion is absolute. The jazz trio has completely packed up their instruments. The catering staff has stopped moving. You could hear a pin drop on the marble floor. I swipe to the final screenshot. The massive television screen lights up with Bradley's last text message sent just a few hours before our celebratory lobster dinner. "I want you all to hear exactly what kind of man Bradley truly is," I say. I read the text aloud, making sure every word carries the full weight of its betrayal. "Once the post-nuptial agreement is signed tomorrow, I'm moving Jessica into the guest house. Chloe will be too tied up in the mortgage and the new debt to ever afford to divorce me. She will be trapped paying for our lifestyle forever." The church crowd gasps in unison. It is a loud, visceral sound of pure revulsion. A few people actually shake their heads in disbelief at the sheer magnitude of the cruelty. "Jessica." I repeat the name clearly. I let my eyes scan the back of the formal living room. I know exactly where she is standing. I saw her hiding in the shadows the moment I walked through the front doors. The crowd naturally follows my gaze. The dense sea of pastel dresses and tailored suits parts like water, creating a clear visual path straight to the open French doors leading to the back patio. Standing right there, clutching a glass of sparkling water with trembling hands, is Jessica. Bradley's 24-year-old receptionist. She is wearing a delicate floral maternity dress. Her left hand is resting protectively over her slightly rounded belly. "There she is," I say into the microphone, lifting my hand and pointing directly at her. The pregnant mistress my husband invited to my housewarming party. The woman he planned to move into my guest house today using my money to fund his double life while I paid off his brother's criminal debts. Jessica freezes completely. Her face turns a sickening shade of gray. The guests standing near her scramble away as quickly as possible, creating a massive empty circle around her. She is entirely exposed. The sweet, innocent co-worker disguise is violently ripped away, leaving only the reality of a woman who actively conspired to steal another woman's life and home. Jessica drops her glass. It hits the floor and shatters into 100 pieces. She turns and runs out the French doors, fleeing across the manicured lawn toward the front gates, her floral dress disappearing into the distance. Nobody tries to stop her. Nobody says a single word to comfort her. I turn my attention back to Beatrice. She has collapsed onto a velvet entryway bench. She is sobbing uncontrollably, her face buried deeply in her hands. Her diamond tennis bracelet sparkles brightly under the crystal chandelier light, a piece of expensive jewelry I paid off just 3 months ago shining on the wrist of a woman who despises me. Travis has completely vanished. He has likely slipped out the back door, realizing that his $2 million lifeline has just been permanently severed and his violent creditors are still out there waiting for their money. The total destruction is complete. I stand at the microphone looking out over the magnificent coastal estate I purchased with years of sacrifice. The air in the room feels different now. The suffocating heavy tension is gone. The toxic lies that held this family together have been dragged out into the bright Rhode Island sunlight and burned to ash. I did not just evict them from a physical building today. I evicted them from their own grand illusions. I stripped away the tailored suits, the vintage wine, and the country club memberships to reveal the absolute moral bankruptcy underneath. They thought I was a naive, desperate workhorse who could be easily led to the slaughter. They vastly underestimated the terrifying precision of a woman who has nothing left to lose and everything to protect. I reach down and turn off the microphone. It makes a soft clicking sound that echoes lightly in the quiet room. I disconnect my phone from the television network. The massive screen goes completely black, leaving only the dark reflection of the stunned, silent crowd. I step away from the audio-visual station and slide my phone back into my blazer pocket. I do not look back at Beatrice crying on the bench. I do not look at the church elders whispering furiously among themselves. I have delivered the undeniable truth, and I have delivered the inescapable consequences. The public exposure is finished. My hands are clean, and my conscience is entirely clear. The silence in the grand foyer is absolute and heavy. It presses down on the 75 wealthy guests, on my sobbing mother-in-law, on the terrified mistress hiding in the back room. But the quiet does not last. The illusion of the perfect wealthy American family has been shattered, and the jagged pieces are falling directly onto my husband. Bradley breaks the silence. He shoves his way through a cluster of shocked church elders. His handsome face is contorted into a mask of pure, ugly rage. The smooth, charismatic investment manager I married is completely gone. In his place is a cornered, desperate man who suddenly realizes the ground has vanished beneath his expensive leather shoes. "You are out of your mind, Chloe," Bradley screams. His voice echoes violently off the vaulted ceiling, making several women in the front row flinch. He lunges toward me, his hands curling into tight fists at his sides. He takes 2 aggressive steps forward, fully intending to use his physical size to intimidate me the way he has done for 5 years. He never makes it to a 3rd step. David, the lead private security contractor, moves with terrifying speed. He steps directly into Bradley's path, planting his heavy boots on the imported marble floor. David raises one massive gloved hand. He does not shout. He does not draw a weapon. He simply creates an immovable physical barrier between my husband and me. The second security contractor instantly moves to flank him, creating a solid wall of dark tactical uniforms. "Take one more step toward my client." David. says his voice a low, gravelly warning that promises immediate physical consequences. I highly recommend you stay exactly where you are, sir. Bradley stops dead in his tracks. He looks at the two massive men, his chest heaving with panicked breaths. He is a man used to bullying people with country club status and condescending remarks. He has absolutely no idea how to handle real, uncompromising authority. He takes a shaky step backward, but his arrogance refuses to let him surrender. He points a trembling finger at me over David's shoulder. You think you are so smart, he spits, his voice dripping with venom. You think you can just march in here and humiliate my family in front of our friends? You think this little corporate stunt changes anything? You are crazy, Chloe. You are having a complete mental breakdown. I stand perfectly still behind the security team. I do not raise my voice. I do not show an ounce of fear. I look at him with the clinical detachment of an auditor inspecting a ruined spreadsheet. I am completely sane, Bradley, I reply, making sure my voice projects clearly to the back of the room. And I am simply claiming what belongs to me. Bradley lets out a harsh, barking laugh that borders on hysterical. You claim nothing. He looks around at the horrified guests, desperately trying to rally an audience that has already abandoned him. She claims nothing. She signed it all away this morning. He turns his crazed eyes back to me, wearing a smile so malicious it makes my blood run cold. Did you forget about our breakfast meeting, babe? Did you forget about the documents you signed with Richard? You can project all the fake property deeds you want on that television. It does not matter. The postnuptial agreement is ironclad. You assumed all marital debt. You waived your rights to alimony. You signed over managerial control of your personal stock portfolio to me. He takes a deep breath, puffing out his chest, completely intoxicated by his own perceived brilliance. I am going to divorce you, Chloe. I am going to drag you through family court until you are completely bankrupt. I am going to take every single dime you have ever made, and I am going to leave you with a $2 million mortgage that you will be paying off for the rest of your miserable blue-collar life. The guests murmur in horror. They are listening to a man publicly outline the financial assassination of his own wife. Beatrice looks up from the velvet bench, a sudden desperate spark of hope lighting up her tear-streaked face. She thinks her son has just saved her. She thinks the old money empire is secure. I let him finish. I let the threat hang in the air for a long, agonizing moment. I want him to feel the absolute peak of his false victory. I reach into the pocket of my navy blue blazer. I pull out a single sheet of heavy legal paper folded neatly into thirds. I unfold it slowly, deliberately, smoothing the creases with my thumbs. You mean the documents we signed at the Harborview Bistro this morning? I ask softly. Yes. Bradley shouts, his face turning a blotchy red. The postnuptial agreement. My lawyer filed it with the county clerk an hour ago. You are trapped, Chloe. It is over. I shake my head slowly, offering him a smile of pure freezing pity. You really should read things before you sign them, Bradley, especially when you are dealing with a forensic accountant. I step slightly out from behind David, holding the paper up for my husband to see. I did not sign a postnuptial agreement today, I state clearly. When I spilled my coffee on the table, you and your shady lawyer were so worried about your custom-tailored suit that you looked away for exactly 4 seconds. That was all the time I needed to slide the signature page of your fraudulent contract into my tote bag. Bradley's smug expression falters. A shadow of profound confusion crosses his eyes. What are you talking about? He demands. I replaced your signature page with a document of my own. I continue tapping the paper in my hand. It was printed on the exact same heavy stock. It had the exact same font. It even had the exact same page number at the bottom. But the text was entirely different. The silence in the grand foyer is so absolute, I can hear the ocean waves crashing against the cliffs outside. What did you make me sign? Bradley whispers. His voice is suddenly devoid of all strength. You signed a corporate banking authorization form, I tell him, allowing a note of absolute triumph to ring in my voice. By signing your name right below mine, You legally authorize the immediate, complete liquidation of our joint investment accounts. You authorize the bank to release the entirety of our shared portfolio directly into a protected single-member trust controlled exclusively by Coastal Management Holdings. Bradley stumbles backward as if I have just physically struck him. He bumps into a marble pillar, his eyes wide with rising terror. I zeroed out the accounts, Bradley. I say, delivering the final crushing blow. As of 9:45 this morning, every single dollar to your name was legally transferred to my corporate entity to cover retroactive consulting fees and property management expenses. You have no stock portfolio. You have no savings. You have absolutely no access to my tech audit bonuses. I fold the paper and slide it back into my blazer pocket. You cannot drag me through family court, I tell him, because you do not have a single dollar left to hire a divorce attorney. You are entirely, completely broke. Bradley opens his mouth, but no sound comes out. He looks at his mother. Beatrice has covered her face with her hands, sobbing uncontrollably as the reality of their total ruin sets in. He looks frantically around the room, searching for Jessica, the pregnant mistress he planned to move into my guest house. But Jessica has already fled. She is gone, and she is never coming back to a man who has nothing left to offer her. This is illegal! Bradley finally chokes out his knees, visibly shaking. You cannot just steal my money. It is not stealing when you authorize the transfer, I remind him coldly. And it was never your money to begin with. It was my money, my bonuses, my life savings. I just finally took it back. I turn away from my ruined husband and look directly at David. The security contractor gives me a firm nod, ready for the final phase of the operation. I turn back to face Bradley and Beatrice. I straighten my posture, commanding the room with the authority of a woman who has completely reclaimed her life. The property deed belongs to my company, I announce. The bank accounts belong to my trust. The financial extraction operation you ran on me for 5 years is officially terminated. I point a finger toward the massive open front doors. You have exactly 60 minutes to vacate my property, I state, my voice ringing like a steel bell. You may take your clothing and your personal toiletries. Everything else, the furniture, the electronics, the imported rugs, remains right here. It is all corporate property now. If you are still inside this house in 61 minutes, these gentlemen will physically escort you to the curb, and you will be arrested for trespassing. Beatrice lets out a high-pitched wail of pure despair. 60 minutes, she screams, clutching her silk gown. We cannot pack our entire lives in 60 minutes. Where are we supposed to go? We do not have any money for a hotel. That is not my problem, Beatrice, I reply smoothly. I suggest you figure it out yourself. Perhaps you can ask one of your lovely church friends to take you in. I gesture toward the crowd of wealthy congregants. They immediately look away. Several of them suddenly pretend to be fascinated by the architecture of the ceiling. The social rejection is immediate and absolute. Nobody in high society wants a broke, fraudulent family sleeping on their guest room sofa. Total chaos erupts in the foyer. Beatrice begins frantically ordering the catering staff to help her gather her designer shoes. The waiters completely ignore her, setting down their silver trays and stepping back to watch the drama unfold. Bradley is pacing in circles, pulling at his own hair, frantically dialing his lawyer on his cell phone. But the call goes straight to voicemail. Even Richard has abandoned ship. And then a new sound cuts through the panicked shouting. It is a heavy, grinding mechanical noise coming from the circular driveway outside. The deep rumble of massive diesel engines. Travis, who has been hiding near the catering tents this entire time, suddenly sprints into the foyer. His face is pale, his eyes wide with absolute panic. He grabs Bradley by the shoulder, shaking him violently. Bradley looks outside. Travis screams, pointing frantically toward the open front doors. They are taking the cars. They are taking my cars. Bradley stops pacing. Beatrice stops crying. The wealthy church guests crowd around the open doorway, craning their necks to look out into the bright coastal sunlight. I stand calmly in the center of the foyer and watch the beautiful destruction unfold. 3 heavy-duty commercial tow trucks have just backed into the estate driveway. They are massive, ugly industrial machines completely ruining the picture-perfect aesthetic of the luxury car lot. The men operating the trucks are moving with practiced, ruthless efficiency. One of the repossession agents is already hooking heavy steel chains to the front axle of Travis's leased Porsche 911. Another agent is backing his truck directly up to the brand-new Range Rover Travis uses to drive to the country club. "Hey, stop!" Travis screams, sprinting out the front doors and down the stone steps. "You cannot do this. Those are my cars." The repossession agent, a burly man in a high-visibility vest, does not even flinch. He holds up a clipboard. "Travis Dixon," he asks loudly. "Yes, that is me. Stop hooking up my car," Travis yells, waving his arms frantically. "Your lease payments are 4 months past due, sir," the agent says, calmly engaging the hydraulic lift. "The bank ordered an immediate repossession of all vehicles registered to this address under your name. Step away from the vehicle, or I will call the local police to report a disturbance." Travis freezes. He looks back at the house, looking for Bradley, looking for Beatrice, looking for anyone to bail him out. But there is no bailout coming. The massive equity line of credit they plan to take out on my house today is dead. The $2 million gambling debt to violent bookies is still very real, and now Travis does not even have a car to run away in. I watch the hydraulic lift raise the front wheels of the Porsche off the crushed gravel. The luxury sports car, a symbol of Travis's fake old money status, is unceremoniously dragged onto the back of the flatbed truck. The Range Rover follows seconds later. Inside the foyer, the church guests are whispering furiously. The humiliation is absolute. It is one thing to lose a house in a quiet legal dispute. It is an entirely different level of social ruin to have your luxury cars repossessed in front of 75 members of your elite country club congregation. Bradley slowly turns away from the doors. He looks at me. His eyes hollow, his spirit completely and utterly broken. He finally understands the terrifying precision of the trap I set. I did not just hit them where it hurts. I dismantled their entire reality. "Your 60 minutes is ticking, Bradley," I remind him, pointing to the antique grandfather clock standing in the corner of the foyer. "You are down to 52 minutes. I suggest you start packing." I do not wait for his response. I do not need to hear another lie, another threat, or another fake apology. The execution is complete. I turn my back on the man I once loved and the family I once sacrificed everything for. I walk past David and the security team. I walk out the heavy mahogany front doors, stepping out into the bright, beautiful Rhode Island sunshine. The ocean breeze hits my face, carrying the scent of salt and absolute freedom. I walk down the stone steps, passing Travis, who is sitting on the edge of the retaining wall with his head in his hands, watching the tow trucks drive away with his fake life. I do not say a word to him. I walk across the manicured lawn to my car. I unlock the door, slide into the driver's seat, and start the engine. I take one last look in the rearview mirror at the $9.6 million mansion. Through the open doors, I can see the frantic, pathetic scrambling of a family that has finally been held accountable for their own greed. I put the car in drive and press the gas pedal. I drive out through the wrought iron gates, leaving the Dixon family behind forever. I have zeroed out their accounts. I have evicted them from their illusions. I have taken my life back. And tomorrow, I am going to sell that house and start a brand new chapter in a city where nobody knows my name, completely and entirely free. The sound of the heavy diesel engines from the repossession trucks fades into the distance, but the silence that follows is entirely different from the quiet that existed before. The grand illusion of the Dixon family has been completely shattered, and the resulting panic is immediate and absolute. I stand by the open door of my car and watch the 75 members of Beatrice's elite church congregation transform from a sophisticated high society gathering into a frantic, fleeing mob. Nobody wants to be associated with a financial scandal. Nobody wants to be seen standing in the driveway of a family that has just been exposed for stealing from their own daughter-in-law to pay off underground gambling debts. The wealthy men in their tailored linen suits do not even bother saying goodbye. They simply grab their wives by the arms and march directly to the valet station. The valet attendants are overwhelmed, sprinting across the manicured lawn to retrieve the gleaming luxury vehicles as fast as possible. Within 10 minutes, the sweeping circular driveway is a chaotic line of Mercedes and BMWs trying to escape the property. I watch a woman in a pastel yellow dress, someone who had been eagerly complimenting Beatrice's fake renovations just an hour ago, aggressively roll up her tinted window as her car passes the front steps. She does not want to make eye contact with the ruined matriarch. The social isolation is instantaneous, brutal, and entirely deserved. The caterers are the next to leave. Realizing that the people who hired them have absolutely no money in their bank accounts to pay the final invoice, the staff stops serving immediately. They do not bother cleaning up the half-eaten crab cakes or the spilled mimosas on the imported marble floors. They simply pack up their silver trays, load their white utility vans, and drive away, leaving the massive white party tents empty and flapping in the coastal breeze. The jazz trio packs their instruments in total silence, carrying their upright bass and saxophone down the driveway, completely ignoring my father-in-law, who is sitting on the stone retaining wall with his head buried in his hands. Beatrice is standing on the crushed gravel near the front gates, and she is entirely unrecognizable. The aristocratic posture she has practiced for decades has collapsed. Her expensive silk gown is covered in dust from the departing vehicles. Her carefully styled hair is coming undone, falling across her face in messy strands. Her mascara is running down her cheeks in thick dark lines, ruining her makeup. She is sobbing loudly, a wet, heavy, desperate sound that echoes across the empty lawn. Surrounding her feet are 3 large designer suitcases. The private security team I hired did exactly what I paid them to do. They gave her 60 minutes to gather her clothing and personal toiletries, and then they physically escorted her out of my $9.6 million mansion. She stands on the curb clutching the handle of a leather suitcase, waiting for someone to help her. She looks at the passing cars of her church friends, raising her hand slightly, hoping one of them will stop and offer her a ride, or perhaps a guest room for the night. But they do not stop. They look straight ahead and accelerate down the coastal road. High society does not forgive financial fraud, and it certainly does not offer its guest houses to people who have become social pariahs. Beatrice is finally experiencing the exact same cold, heartless rejection she showed me for 5 years, but she does not have the strength or the work ethic to survive it. Travis is pacing back and forth near the empty space where his leased Porsche was parked just half an hour ago. He is breathing heavily, his face pale and sweating profusely despite the cool ocean breeze. His luxury cars have been towed away by the bank, but that is the absolute least of his problems. I watch him pull out his cell phone, his hands shaking so violently he can barely type on the screen. He has a $2 million debt to violent underground bookies, and his grand plan to use my life savings to pay it off has been permanently dismantled. He looks up at the massive coastal estate, the house he thought would be his financial salvation, and he realizes he has absolutely nowhere to hide. The people he owes money to do not care about country club memberships or family pride, and now Travis does not even have a vehicle to drive out of the state. I reach into my car and place my purse on the passenger seat. I am preparing to leave when I hear the sound of heavy footsteps crunching quickly across the gravel. I turn around and see Bradley marching toward me. The smug, confident investment manager who laughed at my sacrifice last night is completely gone. His custom-tailored suit is wrinkled. His tie is loosened and hanging crookedly around his neck. His eyes are wide with a mixture of disbelief and absolute terror. He stops 3 feet away from me, breathing hard, looking at me like he is seeing a ghost. "Chloe, please," he says, his voice cracking into a high-pitched, desperate whine. "You have to stop this. You have to call the bank right now and reverse the transfer." I lean against the doorframe of my car, crossing my arms over my chest. I look at the man who planned to move his pregnant 24-year-old mistress into my guest house. I look at the man who tried to trick me into signing a fraudulent post-nuptial agreement to steal my future. I feel absolutely nothing for him. "I cannot reverse a legal transfer that you personally authorized, Bradley," I reply. keeping my voice perfectly calm and even. "You signed the corporate banking authorization form this morning at breakfast. You agreed to liquidate the joint investment accounts to cover the consulting fees of my limited liability company. The money is gone." He runs his hands through his hair, gripping the roots in panic. "I did not read the document, Chloe. I thought it was the tax form. I thought it was the marital liability agreement. You tricked me. You swapped the papers." I offer him a cold, empty smile. "You brought a shady lawyer to a breakfast meeting to secretly strip me of my assets and saddle me with your brother's illegal gambling debt. I simply protected myself. If you had bothered to read the document you were signing, you would have known that. But you were too arrogant. You were too busy thinking about your mistress moving into my house to pay attention to the details." Bradley flinches as if I have struck him in the face. He realizes I know everything. He realizes there is no lie he can tell, no charm he can use, and no emotional manipulation that will work. He falls to his knees on the sharp gravel right in front of me. "Please, Chloe," he begs, the tears finally spilling over his eyelashes. "I am sorry. I am so incredibly sorry. I made a terrible mistake. I let my family pressure me into this. I love you. You are my wife. We can fix this. We can go to counseling. Just give me my half of the money back. I have nothing. I cannot even afford to pay for a hotel room tonight. I have $0 to my name." I look down at him, kneeling in the dirt. This is the man who let his mother treat me like blue-collar trash for 5 years. This is the man who accepted the expensive Rolex watch I bought him and then complained it was not the right color. This is the man who drank my vintage wine and laughed while his family mocked my desperation for their approval. Love is not a transaction, Bradley. I tell him, my voice dropping to a harsh whisper. But betrayal absolutely is. And you just paid the ultimate price for yours. You thought I was a naive workhorse. You thought you could harness me to your family's wagon and whip me until I collapsed. But you forgot one crucial detail. I am a corporate forensic accountant. I do not get played. I build cases. And your case is officially closed. I open my car door and slide into the driver's seat. Bradley scrambles to his feet, grabbing the edge of my open window. "You cannot just leave me here," he shouts, his fear turning back into desperate anger. "I will sue you. I will drag you through the courts for years." I start the engine. "You cannot sue me, Bradley, because lawyers require retainer fees and your bank account balance is currently 0. I suggest you go comfort your mother. She looks like she could use a ride to the homeless shelter." I press the button to roll up my window. Bradley has to let go or risk getting his fingers caught in the glass. He steps back, defeated, his shoulders slumping in total surrender. I put the car in drive and press the gas pedal. As I pull away from the curb, I look in the rearview mirror one last time. I see my ex-husband standing in the dust, completely broken, while his mother cries on her luggage, and his brother hides from imaginary debt collectors. I drive out through the massive wrought iron gates of the Newport estate. As the tires of my car hit the smooth asphalt of the coastal highway, I roll down my window. The cool, salty ocean breeze rushes into the car, tangling my hair. I take a deep, pulling breath, filling my lungs with the clean air. For the first time in 5 years, the suffocating, crushing weight of trying to earn the love of terrible people is gone. My chest feels incredibly light. My mind is perfectly clear. I am driving away from a nightmare, and I am taking every single dollar of my hard-earned money with me. The weeks that follow are a masterclass in the absolute destruction of a fraudulent empire. I do not simply walk away and hope for the best. I use every single skill I have acquired in my professional career to ensure they face the full unmitigated consequences of their actions. I begin by filing for divorce immediately. Because Bradley unwittingly signed over all our joint liquid assets to my single-member corporate trust, he has absolutely no resources to fight me. He tries to hire a divorce attorney, but without a retainer fee, no reputable law firm will take his case. He is forced to represent himself in court. It is a pathetic, embarrassing spectacle. He tries to argue to the judge that I tricked him into signing the banking authorization form. However, because he brought his own attorney to the breakfast meeting and because his own attorney notarized the document without reading it, the judge dismisses his claim entirely. The judge rules that a grown man working in the financial sector is responsible for reading the contracts he signs. The divorce is finalized rapidly. I am granted 100% of the assets held by my limited liability company, and Bradley is granted exactly what he brought into the marriage, which is absolutely nothing. But I do not stop with the divorce. My forensic training requires me to untangle the entire web of lies. I spend 3 days auditing the financial documents and loan applications Travis submitted over the past 2 years to afford his luxury cars and his country club memberships. What I find is not just pathetic, it is highly illegal. Travis has been systematically lying on federal loan applications, inflating his income, and forging employment verification documents to secure credit lines he could never actually afford. He used these fraudulent loans to temporarily pay off the interest on his massive illegal gambling debts. I do not confront him. I simply compile the fraudulent loan applications, match them against his actual tax returns, and mail a comprehensive, neatly organized binder of evidence directly to the regional office of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, specifically their Financial Crimes Division. 3 weeks after the housewarming party, federal agents arrive at the auto parts store where Travis recently found a minimum wage job. He is arrested on the spot for multiple counts of wire fraud and bank fraud. He is currently awaiting trial in a federal holding facility, which ironically is the safest place for him to be, considering the violent bookies are still actively looking for him to collect their $2 million. The most satisfying reality, however, is the fate of Beatrice and Bradley. With no money, no luxury cars, and their social reputation completely annihilated in Newport society, they are forced to leave the affluent coastal town entirely. They scrape together what little cash they can get from selling Beatrice's designer clothing and jewelry to second-hand consignment shops. They use the meager funds to rent a room in a cramped 2-star motel sitting right on the edge of a loud, dirty interstate highway in a neighboring state. I hear through the grapevine of mutual acquaintances that their new life is a miserable, bleak existence. They share a single room that smells permanently of stale cigarette smoke and cheap industrial cleaner. The neon sign outside their window buzzes loudly all night long. Beatrice spends her days sitting on a worn-out floral bedspread, watching daytime television completely cut off from the country club galas and the elite church luncheons she once ruled. Her friends have blocked her phone number. The people she used to gossip with now use her as a cautionary tale of greed and arrogance. Bradley is forced to take a job working at a mid-level retail electronics store, wearing a cheap polyester uniform instead of his custom-tailored suits, answering to managers who do not care about his old money pedigree. As for Jessica, the 24-year-old pregnant mistress, she proves to be exactly as calculated as I expected. The moment she realizes Bradley is entirely bankrupt and facing a brutal divorce settlement, she cuts all ties with him. She changes her phone number, quits her job at the investment firm, and moves back in with her parents in a different city. Bradley loses the mansion, his wife, his money, and his secret new family, all in the span of a single afternoon. And me. I am currently sitting on the balcony of a stunning luxury penthouse in downtown Chicago. I sold the Newport mansion to a tech executive for a massive profit, adding another $1 million to my portfolio. I am sipping a cup of excellent black coffee, watching the city wake up below me. I do not feel sad. I do not feel bitter. I feel powerful, focused, and entirely in control of my own destiny. I did not look back as I drove away from the coastal cliffs of Newport, Rhode Island that afternoon. The highway stretched out in front of me, bathed in the golden light of the late afternoon sun. My phone remained perfectly silent on the passenger seat. There were no more frantic calls from Bradley begging for forgiveness. There were no more demanding text messages from Beatrice ordering me to fix her problems. The toxic noise that had defined my existence for 5 long years was finally and permanently gone. But my work was not entirely finished. I am a corporate forensic accountant. I know better than to leave loose ends tied to a $9.6 million physical asset. I had absolutely no intention of keeping that massive estate. It was a monument to a beautiful lie. It was a house built entirely on my desperation and their deceit. I wanted it gone completely, and I wanted to profit from their mistake. 2 days after the private security team executed the 60-minute eviction, I officially listed the property on the market. I did not use any of the local real estate agents who catered to Beatrice's elite church congregation. I hired a cutthroat luxury broker based out of Manhattan. I gave her very specific instructions. I told her I wanted a fast, quiet, and highly profitable sale. The Newport real estate market was incredibly competitive that summer, and a fully renovated cliffside mansion with imported Italian marble floors and a custom mahogany library was a rare commodity. It took exactly 14 days to find the perfect buyer. A tech billionaire from Silicon Valley who wanted a summer home on the East Coast and who did not care at all about the old money social politics of Rhode Island. He toured the property exactly once, fell in love with the sweeping ocean view from the master suite, and made an immediate all-cash offer, $11 million. I sat in Jonathan's sleek law office in downtown Chicago when the final wire transfer cleared. I stared at the confirmation document resting on his polished mahogany desk. $11 million. I had purchased the estate just a few weeks prior for $9.6 million. In less than a single month, I had walked away from the most traumatic and devastating experience of my life with a massive $1.4 million profit. I signed the final closing papers with a steady hand and a calm heart. I felt a profound, overwhelming sense of closure wash over my entire body. The Dixon family had planned to use that beautiful house to bury me in a $2 million mountain of debt to save my brother-in-law from violent bookies. Instead, I had used that very same house to build an impenetrable fortress around my own financial independence. They tried to dig a grave for me, but they only succeeded in burying themselves. With the Newport chapter officially closed forever, I needed a fresh start. I wanted a life that truly reflected the strong, capable woman I had become, not the shrinking, terrified wife I used to be. I decided to stay in Chicago, the city, where I had built my highly successful career, but I left the modest, quiet suburban neighborhood of my past completely behind. I used a fraction of my real estate profits to purchase a stunning luxury penthouse apartment right in the heart of downtown. It features massive floor-to-ceiling windows that overlook the vast, glittering expanse of Lake Michigan. The ceilings are incredibly high. The living spaces are wide open and flooded with brilliant natural light. I decorated the entire place myself, choosing modern, clean lines and warm, inviting colors. There are no heavy antique furniture pieces. There is no fake aristocratic history hanging on the walls. Everything in this home is real, genuine, and authentic. And most importantly, everything in this home belongs entirely to me. The first night I spent in my new penthouse, I ordered simple takeout food and sat right on the hardwood floor of my empty living room. I looked out at the vibrant city lights reflecting off the dark, calm water of the lake. I was completely alone in that massive space, but for the very first time in my adult life, I did not feel lonely. The crushing, suffocating weight of my toxic marriage was gone. The constant gnawing anxiety of trying to please people who were entirely committed to misunderstanding me had finally evaporated into the cool night air. I poured myself a glass of inexpensive wine and raised it in a silent toast to my own reflection in the glass window. I had survived. I had systematically dismantled a massive financial conspiracy designed by the man I loved. I had protected myself when no one else would. I was safe. Now that the dust has completely settled, people sometimes ask me how I managed to keep my composure through it all. They ask me how I walked into that grand foyer, flanked by private security contractors, and systematically destroyed my husband's entire world without shedding a single tear. The honest truth is that I did cry. I cried a river of tears for 5 long, miserable years. I cried every single time Beatrice insulted my working-class background with a polite smile. I cried every time Bradley dismissed my genuine feelings or prioritized his brother's manufactured crisis over my actual well-being. I cried until there were absolutely no tears left to shed in my body. By the time I discovered that digital group chat on his unlocked tablet, the sadness had already burned away completely. Only cold, absolute clarity remained. I had to learn a terrifying and painful lesson the hard way. I used to believe that love was a transaction. Growing up with parents who constantly clipped coupons and worried sick about the electric bill, I truly thought that providing financial stability was the ultimate expression of care and devotion. When I married into a family that pretended to be wealthy but was actually drowning in secret underground debt, I thought my hard-earned money could buy their respect. I thought if I worked 80-hour weeks at the auditing firm, if I paid their massive country club initiation dues, if I bought the $9.6 million dream mansion, they would finally look at me and see a real daughter. I thought my blind sacrifice would magically transform them into good, loving people. But you cannot buy the respect of people who are committed to misunderstanding your value. Beatrice did not want a loving daughter. She wanted a limitless credit card to fund her country club delusions. Bradley did not want an equal partner in life. He wanted a reliable blue-collar workhorse to pull his family's golden carriage while he built a secret life with a 24-year-old receptionist. They looked at my generosity and they saw weakness. They looked at my desperate yearning to belong to their family, and they saw a perfect opportunity to extract my entire life savings. They truly believed that because I was quiet, because I was accommodating, because I desperately wanted peace in my home, I would simply roll over and let them take everything I had ever worked for. They completely forgot that the exact same relentless work ethic that allowed me to buy that coastal estate also gave me the formidable skills to defend it. They forgot that you should never back a corporate forensic accountant into a dark corner. When you spend your entire professional career auditing massive tech firms and uncovering complex corporate fraud, you learn how to read the silence between the numbers. You learn how to spot a lie hidden inside a beautiful spreadsheet. I simply took the skills I used to destroy corrupt executives and applied them to my own living room. I stopped listening to their elegant excuses, and I started tracking their actions. I stopped believing in their potential, and I started auditing their reality. If you are listening to this right now and you recognize yourself in my story, I need you to hear my words very clearly. Stop shrinking yourself to fit into spaces where you are tolerated but never celebrated. Stop trying to prove your fundamental worth to people who actively benefit from keeping you insecure and anxious. If you are constantly the one making all the heavy sacrifices, if you are the one paying the bills, planning the holidays, apologizing for arguments you did not start, and tiptoeing around fragile egos, you are not in a family. You are in a hostage situation disguised as a marriage. We are taught from a very young age that blood is thicker than water. We are taught that marriage is a sacred bond that must be preserved at absolutely all costs. We are told by society to be the bigger person to compromise our own needs, to keep the peace for the sake of the family. But sometimes keeping the peace requires you to go to war. Sometimes the only way to save your own life is to burn the false toxic empire to the ground and walk away from the ashes without looking back. Love is not supposed to drain you until you are empty. Love is supposed to fill your cup. The moment you realize that your love is being used as a weapon against you is the moment you must walk away to survive. I am 32 years old today. I am entirely self-made and incredibly proud of that fact. I do not have a charming, manipulative husband anymore. I do not have snobby, ungrateful in-laws criticizing my every move. What I have is a beautiful penthouse in the sky, a massive protected investment portfolio, and a profound, unshakable peace of mind. I wake up every single morning and I breathe clean, fresh air. I sit on my balcony with a hot cup of coffee and I watch the city wake up. I do not check my bank accounts in a cold panic wondering what Bill Travis racked up overnight. I do not brace my shoulders for the next manufactured family emergency designed to drain my wallet. I am completely and utterly free from the toxic leeches of my past, and my future is entirely my own to write. I know that society often labels women like me as cold or vindictive or harsh. When you finally stand up for yourself, When you stop being a convenient, compliant victim, the people who used to exploit your kindness will quickly rewrite the narrative to make you the villain of the story. Let them. Let them call you crazy to their remaining friends. Let them call you selfish to anyone who will listen. Their false opinions do not pay your mortgage, and their conditional approval will never keep you warm at night. Your inherent worth is not determined by the people who spectacularly failed to appreciate you. Your true worth is determined by how fiercely you are willing to protect yourself when the illusion shatters. Do not ever let anyone convince you that protecting your hard-earned assets, your mental sanity, and your future is an act of revenge. Justice is not revenge. Evicting a woman who conspired to steal your home is not cruelty. It is simply the natural, immediate consequence of her own terrible choices. I did not destroy Bradley's life. He destroyed his own life the very moment he decided his pregnant mistress deserved to live in the guest house of the beautiful estate I purchased with my own blood, sweat, and tears. I did not ruin them. I simply handed them the final receipt for their own behavior. I walked away and I let the reality of their own actions crush them. If you believe that setting boundaries isn't revenge, it's survival. Drop the word justice in the comments below. Where are you watching this from and what time is it? Let me know down in the comments. I read every single one. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about taking your power back. Until next time, remember you are the CEO of your own life.